case, or?
It's not.
It should, it needs to be filed in the case.
Does it?
Yeah, because you can't go to court and then drop it on them on the day.
Oh, you can't?
Not like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd file it into the case for sure.
Okay. So then, the next thing is concurrence. You need mens rea, actus rea, concurrence, and causation. And when you read the definition of causation, it says an injured party or someone that was harmed.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're screwed, right? There's no injured party, there's no one that was harmed.
Right.
So there's no crime.
Right.
You can cut that down actually, because you can ask the question, is it a civil action or is it a criminal?
Yeah.
And if it's a civil action, then where's the contract that you allege I've agreed to and signed?
Right.
And if it's criminal, then bring forth the man or woman I've harmed, so that I
There you go.
may remedy.
Don't even get into the mens rea part of it.
Yeah.
Just an injured party, just go for causation.
That's all it needs.
Yep.
I mean, if they want to go further, then you can certainly bring up all the causes of action.
Yeah.
And break it down in that regard, but I don't know that you need to.
I think you're probably right.
I know you're probably planning on court appearance, but I would suggest that you actually file the information that you have in the case and then do some kind of administrative remedy with the prosecutor.
I think you should also notice them that misapplying the law to the facts of the matter is an abuse of judicial discretion, and they're personally liable. They don't have discretion to do that.
This is the thing you were saying earlier.
Right.
What was the name of that case? Is that a Texas case or is it
Yeah. Well, but I'll bet you can find one in
Pennsylvania?
let me see if I'll find that one in Texas. It might be, I'm not sure, I'm not positive it's Texas, but I'm pretty sure it is.
Here's the plate that I have.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they're both driving Lexuses too.
Yeah.
That's the same.
Oh, is it?
I've just got know-how on the back of mine, or back and front of mine.
Is that right? So I don't know if you noticed this 3x3 MPT.
Yeah, I know, because that's how I do my passwords.
Is that right?
Do the lettering backwards.
The lead speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is Texas. Walker versus Packer, 827 Southwest, 833, 840, Texas, 1992.
Oh, hold on a second. Let me write this down.
Misapplying the law to the facts. Misapplying the facts to the law in the matter is abuse of discretion and official oppression. And this is where I accuse them of official oppression.
So it's Walker.
Walker versus Packer.
And what else?
What do you want, the site?
Yeah.
It's 827 Southwest. I think that instead of SD, it should be 2D,
2D.
but I'm not positive.
827 2D.
Southwest 2D.
Southwest 2D.
Yeah, I think it's 2D.
Okay.
Let's see if we can do a search. Walker versus Packer.
That's my son.
Oh, compensation, okay. Not engaged in transportation or perfect, that's very concise.
Yeah.
Right to the point.
Yeah. Well, the reason I use that is when I studied law, when I went
Yeah,
to
it's
police
2D.
school,
Walker versus Packer.
Okay. Thank you.
they were teaching us the history of the motor traffic, motor vehicle act and so on. And although I asked questions about it, I never got sufficient answers, but this was always that top section
The
was
reward
very
part.
specific for UK law. It didn't mention the transportation or commerce bit, that's specific to US.
But it had to be for fee, for compensation, for profit.
So you made the distinction, it was a private conveyance,
Yep.
and it wasn't for hire or reward. And that was it, that covered you, and that was part of the legislation in the early Motor Vehicle Act in the UK. And I've remembered it ever since, which is why I use it now, because it just explains exactly the same thing, and the transportation and commerce bit is for the US.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess
Fleshes it out more.
one of the good things about this coronavirus hoax is some of these brain dead idiots that are driving around with government plates on their vehicle will take themselves out of the gene pool.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, talking about that, there were 5 accidents within 3 traffic
This
lights.
is the self-executing contract. What's that?
I was saying there were 5 vehicles damaged in a number of different accidents, I'm assuming, within the space of 3 traffic lights.
Oh, nice, I like it.
And we've been listening to sirens going off like daily. I haven't heard sirens frequently for a while, but every single day now we're listening to sirens every several hours of the day.
Because of the virus, vaccines?
I think it's the vaccine. I think it's knocking people stupid.
I think it is too.
You know, and they're just in accidents, they're causing accidents and doing things that just on the face of it.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind the text of this, it'd be great.
I had a brief one that was basically.
Either that or if I could take
A
a
little
picture
sticker.
of one or something.
Is that the one for the car?
I can, is that?
Is that the one for the car?
Yeah,
You would
self-executing contract.
Yeah, no, I've seen a few of them, but I'd be interested to see a full one, because the one I've had, and I have a picture of it as well, it's just a little, yeah, that's a long one. It's just a little sticker that you stick in front, really concise.
Right.
It doesn't go into great detail.
This one's in great detail because
It does, yeah.
you know you have the situation in the Constitution that says no state shall make any law impairing the obligations of contracts.
Right,
So this they can't impair this in any way.
right. And they volunteered, they took your vehicle, and it was an illegal taking. too.
Yes, exactly.
So it's for sale.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
like add that to my list of armaments. Thank you.
Yeah, no joke.
Yeah, because I've already got several for the car already, and I've gone through 2 police encounters, one an actual stop, and the other one, I was at the hospital telling Nelson about it with my mother-in-law. We were there for 3.5 hours, and she's calling the cops for kidnapping because we took her down there.
Wow, really?
Well, her doctor said you need to take her to the hospital.
Really?
She doesn't want to go. So we took her, and she called the cops, and we had to stand out outside ER. My car is parked right there, my sister-in-law's van right behind, and it was her van that she went and got taken down in. Tara's with us, and the cops, 3 cops turned up eventually. We had the rookie female cop, and I hate those rookie female cops. I hated them when I had to work with them because they have a brain switch.
Yeah, right,
Because they're competing and all, want to be all big and tough.
right.
Anyway, the next guy looked like an ex-military. He'd served a few years in military, and I think that kind of came through as I was talking to him. The other one that showed up was a corporal a little later on. He looked to be one of those that was on the high flyer and taking the exams for the promotions.
Right.
He didn't look old enough to have served a lot of time to be a corporal. But I served them Catman's ID.
Really?
Both times actually, when I got stopped by the cop, first thing I gave him was Catman's ID.
What kind of ID is that?
It's common law ID. You've still got yours as well.
Yeah, I got one.
Yeah. Get lights in the way. So, anyway, I gave the cop on both occasions these. The female cop freaked out when she saw it. Didn't know what to do. So that's the one that's got the notary on it as well.
So did you print this up yourself?
No, Catman.
Oh, is that Catman on the administering?
Well, he's actually, I don't know, he gets a digest, I think, for my group. He comes in once in a while.
Yeah, he was part of the
But,
administrating the
yeah.
Google groups, but
Right.
he kind of gets pissed off with some of the other people.
He doesn't, you don't see
Yeah.
him interacting too much.
I know, I noticed that too.
Yeah, he's got a little group. He keeps calling me every now and again, and we stay in touch.
Is that right?
Yeah.
He
Tries
calls
to,
me once in a while.
yeah, I get in. He tries to get me in on some of the. What he's trying to do is pull a group of people together, have communication and calls, and he was impressed with, my knowledge and certain interactions we were having, so that's why he wanted me as part of the group. But yeah, the cops that I got stopped by, I spoke to each time. I gave them that. And the rookie cop who stopped me on the street called back up. We had a short conversation before the backup was called, where I did my spiel, but it was slightly different because I expected him to come to the driver window, and he didn't. He came on the inside and went to the passenger window.
Yeah.
So the first I could get was as soon as Tara rolled the window down, she was in the passenger seat. First thing he does is he sticks his head in there and says, yeah, license and registration. So first thing I did was kind of dug into my wallet, pulled that out, but before I gave it to him, I said, look, before you go all through this, I've got some questions for you. And then I asked him my usual questions as to, did you see me commit or about to commit a breach of the peace? And he kind of looked, Did you see me commit or about to commit a felony arrestable offence? No.
Emergency? Breach of peace?
Well, the emergency bit was, actually I did mention that because I missed it, sorry, but that was the first thing. That was the first thing I said to him. I said, I saw your lights come on, and I pulled over as soon as I could to let you pass. What's the emergency? Is there anything I can help you with? Oh, no, there's no emergency, you're all right. And then I went into the rest of the spiel about my, breach of the peace, arrestable offence, and then finally I said, have you got a warrant out for my arrest? And he said, warrant? No. And at this point, Tara, she told me later, but he's shaking. He starts to shake because he doesn't know what the hell is going on.
Right.
So, but I think at this point, because I'd finished my questions part, he stands up and okay, he wants to back up now and calls on his radio and gets his mate to come
He
down.
knows he's in hot water.
Yeah. So anyway, his buddy shows up a few minutes later, but in the meantime I've given him that, and he goes back to the car. So we're all sat there. His buddy shows up. They have a conversation for about a minute, and his buddy comes up, asks me about, do you have a driving license? So I said, what driving license? Driving license. You mean a New Jersey driving license? Yeah. No, I don't have a New Jersey driving license. Do I need one?
There you go.
Yeah. So he was just like, what? And then he said, wait a minute, are you one of them sovereign citizens?
Yeah, they always come up with that.
I say, I don't answer or don't recognize.
Stupid questions.
I don't recognize and identify as a sovereign citizen is actually what I said. I do identify as being sovereign, completely different things.
Yeah.
So he went, okay. hang on a minute. He went back to his buddy at the car, and then they were conversing again. They must have been on the radio and then doing checks. He comes back, both of them come back to the car and said, okay, before this goes any further, because he started asking me a couple of other questions, and then I said, James, who was in the back seat, just pass me that file, will you? So I got this out, got my document out, and I said, here, before this goes any further, you better take this. No, I'm not taking that. I'm not having it. Don't want it.
So
You
say,
better
like,
take it
am I
because
free to go
it's
then?
part of, well, it's part of this stop. So if you don't take it, you will
We're
you
gonna
will end up
terminate.
being in further trouble than you already are.
Yeah.
So the pair of them are looking at me crazy at this point. You know, the kids are in the back all nice and quiet. Tara's sitting back in the seat because they're talking across her. And where did we get to at that point? Oh, they were asking me for the address. Can we have your address?
It's not here, but it's Tennessee.
It's Tennessee, yeah.
Is that Catman's address?
No, that's a virtual mail address.
Oh, you
It's
have one of these.
Private. It's a private address, but it's a virtual mailing address. So all my mail goes to that.
Okay. But is this one of those things where you send it there and then they open it and they scan it and mail
Yes.
it to you electronically?
Yes.
Okay.
Or they can forward it. We can just forward the whole email. But
Yeah.
they charge you for doing that.
Yeah.
of course. But yeah, that's what. Well, most of my mail, I don't get very much mail, to be honest. So it doesn't really get used. But that's what it is. But they were asking for my address in New Jersey. So what do you want the address for? So we can give you, write the ticket and give you the ticket. So what do you give me a ticket for? I haven't done anything wrong. And he's crazy.
Right.
Looked on the face, they just hadn't got a clue. And he said, well, how about your address in Canada? Because of course they realised I've got Ontario plates on it. How about your address in Canada? I said, well, that's a stupid thing, isn't it? Sending it all the way up to Canada just so it can come all the way back down here for me to then go to a court because I ain't paying it. So he said, well, we need an address. I said, no, you don't, because I've not done anything wrong. I'm not giving you an address. So then at that point, I was getting a bit pissed off because I had an appointment that I had to go to. So I said, look, I'm a retired cop. I've served in the UK. I've researched law there. I've lived in Canada 18 years. I've worked in Canada 18 years. I didn't mention whether it was as a cop or otherwise. And now I'm down here. I know more about the law than I ever did when I was going through the service. I'm pretty sure you're exactly the same, that you have only been taught so much. The other cop didn't say anything, but the rookie cop got his back straight up and said, I'm thoroughly trained in the law, thank you very much.
Yeah, right.
So I said, well, you think you're thoroughly trained, but there's stuff that you are not told. And I only found out after I left the job, which is why you need to take this and read it so that you know what to do, both of you know what to do, should you come across somebody like us in the future. Because if you don't, you're leaving yourself open to lawsuits.
Well,
Personal
worse,
lawsuits.
worse than that, maybe
Yeah.
jail.
Yeah, maybe that. But I didn't go that far. So they kind of had a little bit of a conversation. I back out of the way a bit, and then he came in and he sticks his hand in through the windscreen, the side window, hands me the documents back, and says, "We've had a chat about it, and we're going to give you a break."
You're giving himself a break.
Yeah. So they hadn't accepted this at that point. I said, "Oh, well, thank you very much for giving me the break for something I didn't do. But I'm suggesting that you now take a copy of this. What you do after, I don't care, but you need to read this. You need to be aware because you're going to come across more people like me. And you need to know. You need to know the limits of your power because you have limits, even though you're told you're not." And they took it. They took it. What they did after, I have honestly no idea.
Right.
They had no way of interacting with me properly, contracting with me, and they couldn't understand why I wasn't giving them the address details. It was completely foreign to them.
You were under arrest, right?
Well, I wasn't under actual arrest, and even if it was, I mean, I've got answers to that anyway, because it's an infraction. There's no
It's not an
arrestable.
arrestable offense.
And,
Not a
and even
crime.
if I'd turned around and didn't identify myself, that's not an offence either. Because the only offence where you can be arrested for not providing your information is after... well, in
If
fact,
you have committed a crime.
you have committed a crime, exactly. That's the only time. And you should give your details at that point. And you don't get necessarily, because you're already under arrest at that point.
Yeah.
You just get extra charges for failing to identify to a police officer. It in itself is not an arrestable offence. And cops are arresting people for not giving their ID.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, don't get me going.
Barstow Police Department in California actually got nailed by the judge for arresting somebody, a passenger in a car that refused to give his identification.
Really? A
Oh,
passenger?
Yeah, and they were forced by the judge to train the department and write a letter to all the people in the department identifying how they should proceed in these cases. And it says that people that are not under arrest or not directly engaged in the crime do not have to show their identification.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, so this is Catman's deal, huh?
Yeah.
So we don't know really if this thing worked because you just had good answers. They
Well,
would have given you the ticket if you wouldn't have been persistent on your knowledge of knowing that it wasn't an arrestable offense, right? You're not arresting me. You had no arrest. You had no
yeah, I
authority to
didn't.
arrest.
Well, I didn't specifically state about being arrested or not, but I did go through obviously asking questions as to whether it was a breach of the peace, all of the reasons for probable cause,
Minimum context.
and that's all I wanted to establish, because it was all being recorded as well, or I thought.
I think
Well,
his advantage is that he's a retired cop.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
he's
does
not
have to.
intimidated by it.
Well, that,
Most people like us,
that and the fact that it's not registered in the United States either.
well, I don't think that really matters. I mean, that
But
helps
his
him,
license says Tennessee on
that
it.
helps him
Yeah,
somewhat.
but he didn't show him that, did he?
No, I did.
that helps
that was
him.
my ID.
Oh,
that helps
why
him
didn't they go
somewhat.
with that address?
I have no idea. They never mentioned it.
That's
I
crazy.
didn't point it out to them.
I know it.
But
it's
it's,
funny enough, actually, the first thing he said when he looked at it, he said, "What are you giving me this for? It's a firearms license." And I said, "Yeah, it's a firearms license for sure, but it's a hell of a lot more than that. It's a common law ID that also confirms my Second Amendment protected rights to bear arms. Because it says that on it. You see it at the top. So that was the first thing he thought it was. He didn't even think it was any other kind of an ID. He just thought it was a firearms license."
So, one of the things Roger Dowdell said, which was kind of interesting, a lot of people claim that they have a right to travel. And of course, Morris believes that in the law of nations that you do have a right to travel, but the Constitution doesn't say anything about a right to travel.
actually it does.
It does.
The
But
Ninth
he also
Amendment.
mentions unalienable rights.
The Ninth Amendment.
Which has to do with anything that is, it's reserved for the states and or the people or
That's the
something.
10th Amendment.
What's the ninth?
The Ninth Amendment basically says that just because we haven't mentioned a bunch of rights doesn't mean that people don't have them.
Right,
Mhm.
okay.
Oh,
And that
So
then
it's not
goes back to the
specifically-
Magna Carta, which does mention the free movement of peoples and the right to travel.
Well,
In
and it's
the law of
actually in the
nations,
first too,
Yeah.
right?
Well, the first I don't think is the freedom of speech, freedom of religion.
the first is right to
Redress
assemble.
of grievances, right to assemble.
So that,
But there's redress of grievances. I use the First Amendment for, as part of filing fees, because I have a right to redress of grievances.
so
And
Roger,
that's not subject to regulation.
what Roger said is for the right to travel, instead of using right to travel, use right to assemble. So I was going to Lowe's to assemble
Oh, that's a good idea, I like that,
with the shoppers.
I like that.
And they affect, in what's,
So I'm assembling, I'm in the process of assembling.
yeah. So
That's a good idea, I
what
like
you're
that.
doing, you go from point A to point B to assemble.
Right.
And it's called a penumbra. They've got to allow you to travel
To get there.
to get there.
Yeah.
Because you can't assemble unless you can get there, right?
Right.
So you use the penumbra doctrine to,
And
Well, a penumbra is getting too cloudy for these low intelligence thugs,
didn't,
but,
Well, my document is that because I have this with me and I give it to them, it gives them all of the Supreme Court and lower court citations about rights to travel. And it's been enshrined within Supreme Court case history and the like. So there's 6 pages, there's 20 pages in total. 6 pages of it are the interesting bit that they need to read and get to grips with. The rest of it is all definitions and citations, court citation, all the backup for everything that's in the first 6 pages. So, it's all there. They either accept it or they don't.
yeah.
there, the 9th Amendment. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people.
the people's powerful.
That's right.
And you weren't there at lunch, but Ed mentioned a beautiful line about that he just revokes the public servant's authority.
Yeah, so what happened was this guy that's teaching this class, the law common to I, he got arrested for not having a plate on his car. The same kind of thing that happened to you and to me. He got arrested for that, and the cop was going to have his car towed. And he says, under what authority are you going to do that? He says, well, I have authority to do that. He says, well, I revoke your authority to do that, because if you did that, that would be a trespass on my property and would harm me. And the guy kind of stepped back. He was shocked by that he would revoke his authority to do that. But then he says, I'm not going to argue with you. I will take it to your house. That's what he said to him.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, when he says, I'm not going to argue with you, I thought he was going to say, take it to the impound lot. But he says, I'll take it to your house.
Wow.
No, it's just a simple line for it to register in your brains.
Yeah, but it's thinking outside the box again.
But again, I know,
Yeah,
because I can always see this from the cop's point of view, because I've been
I know.
there, and knowing how they're trained and how they think,
Right.
unless the cop himself has got some extra learning of his own and knows the limit of his authority, they would just say, "You, what the hell are you revoking my authority?"
But if
Getting
you,
a damn paddy.
if you said, if you proceed in this manner, it would harm me, and it would be a trespass against my property. Do they know about harm and trespass?
Yeah, well, they do. Trespass is usually taught as a civil matter more than a criminal. Harm, of course, there are varying forms of harm.
But it is causation for crime, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. But he would probably still question, what harm am I causing you? I'm removing this vehicle from the public highway to lessen any danger to other transportation, other cars, vehicles, whatever. That's typically the reason why they take them off, which is another reason why I say always pull off the road, pull onto a private parking lot somewhere, because then that removes their reason to take the car away.
See,
unless it's part of an offence, it's part of a crime, in which case it then becomes evidence.
So here's the little tweak there. So I can see where the cop has to get it off the road, but he doesn't have to take it to an impound lot. if it would harm somebody, he could take it to their house and avoid the harm.
If it's on private property, he doesn't have to take it in.
Well, no, I mean, if it's on the side of the road, let's say that it's
Right.
there just for the sake of argument, in that Carl was right that it has to be towed. It doesn't say that he has authority to take it to an impound lot, it just says he has authority to take it off the road to prevent a safety issue. And if the person said that it would harm me if you take it to an impound lot, but if you take it to 123, there won't be a trespass against you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, when all this stuff is happening, it's hard to think of it all.
It is. It is.
Yeah, it
Oh,
is.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
It is. But I like the guy who tried to arrest me at the library. He was going to, and had I known it, I could have revoked his authority because he was going to arrest me out of spite, and I didn't have time to go to jail again. So I left the premises. But the authority he was using was the policy of the free library, because a public employee had lied about what I did. Long story short, the revoking the authority would have been interesting, and then we'll go all the way up to the mayor if, continue to revoke, because he refused to get a lieutenant. He says, I'm basically the one here dealing with this. And had I known about that, it would have been on camera.
Right.
As one of the people, I do like mentioning one of the people,
Right.
because that's where my authority lies, correct?
No, it's you as a man.
He is a man.
You're sovereign.
As a man,
Okay.
but the people is a certain, for example, in the preamble to the Constitution, when it says, and this is one of the presentations I've got that I wanted to do this weekend probably, is who is
We
the people. That's right.
It was the people that signed the Constitution. It wasn't the
But-
people of the posterity of the United States.
Well, it does say the posterity though on the preamble.
You didn't sign it, so you're not one of the people.
Yeah, but it says in the preamble, it says to preserve the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity.
Our posterity, the people that signed it.
That's right. So, but if you can show that you're a direct descendant of the founders, then that creates a big problem for them.
Yeah, because then you're an heir and an assignee.
That's right.
But if you're a man dealing with another man,
Yeah,
it's
there's
a
nothing
whole-
wrong with that.
it's a
There's
whole
nothing wrong
different-
with that.
Whole different
But
situation.
the as one of the people, it creates. There's a thing called the right of blood, and there's a thing called that which is created cannot be greater than that which created it. There's maxims of law that no civil law can damage right of blood, and so when you start using certain words like I'm one of the posterity, here's my ancestry, and here's a pedigree chart showing if you don't like this line, there's a whole bunch of other ones you can pick from. You know what I mean? And that creates a big problem for them. You know what I mean? Now, a man and all that is good. There's nothing wrong with that.
But the Confederation goes back, though, before the Constitution.
Yeah, well, that's why I go and use the, I trace my ancestry well before even the Articles of Confederation. You know, mid-1700s. And a lot of people can do that. And certainly that's good. And really, if you think about it, you know, really, they're nothing but a bunch of thieves and you know, scumbags anyways. And so, and this is one thing, because in the posterity thing, if I didn't have ancestry that went back like that, I might make it up. You know what I mean? Because who's going to call you a liar? It's got to be somebody with first-hand knowledge. You know what I mean?
I know Tara's done her family tree, so she's got it all the way back to family Plantagenet from France or something. from the 1500s.
Yeah, right,
Goes up into England.
right.
Then it branches a little bit. Goes to Scotland and then over to America.
Right.
And then there's a few different places, Virginia, Tennessee. I think I remember mentioning something that one of the people involved in the signing of one of the state constitutions was a family member, was an ancestor.
I've got an ancestor by the name of Livingston, and there was a governor of Livingston during the War of Independence. There was one of the governors of one of the states, I can't remember which one.
I
But,
believe it's New Jersey.
huh?
I believe it's New Jersey.
Could have been. But, so, yeah, I've got some interesting ancestry. There's a story in my family about, my middle name is Winningham, and that's my mother's maiden name. And so then her family goes back, there's a guy, the story in the family is that there was a guy by the name of Buckingham, as in Buckingham Palace in England, where the Queen lives, or maybe used to live. Anyways, there's a guy by the name of Buckingham that used to get in these duels. And, you know, if he walked away, he won the duels, right? And so then there's all these people coming at him wanting to get into duels with him. The people that he had won duels over, their family and that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? And he didn't want to be getting in all these duels all the time. So he came to America and changed the name to Winningham. Right? That's just a story. There's no evidence. Haven't found any evidence of it.
What was the name before that?
Buckingham.
Oh, Buckingham, that's right, you said.
Right. And so, so that's, you know, there's actually quite a few Winninghams now in America. It's an unusual name, but
Yeah.
but it's certainly not as common as Smith or something like that. But it's still not that common either. You know.
Yeah, I have a problem because mine's Jones.
Is Jones?
Jones.
Yeah. Jones is definitely very common.
Yeah.
So if someone arrived today on America, is it anyone's opinion they can just stand on the Articles of Confederation as a free inhabitant?
It's still under the four organic laws. The Articles of Confederation,
Right.
the Constitution,
Right.
the Northwest Ordinance,
Yeah.
and the Declaration of Independence. Those are the four
You
organic
do know
laws.
why, that's why the Democrats are bringing people in and accepting people into the country, because there is no such thing as an illegal alien.
That's right. That's true. That's true.
Well, in law there is, meaning their law.
Not an illegal alien. In law, there is no such thing as an illegal alien.
Or if you're an alien, you're just not.
An illegal alien, now think about it, illegal means they're not involved in some contract.
Yeah.
And so, how can they be illegal and an alien at the same time?
That's a true statement. If they're an alien that's not
It's
in
like
a
a sovereign
contract.
citizen.
Really, yeah.
Oxymoron.
And so I think that, you know, people could, that's why they gotta stop them at the border. I mean, once they come here, that's why, if you think, you look at what the Democrats are doing, okay? They give them, when they get here, they get all these free health care, they get all of these free benefits, they get income, they'll pay them. Well, you know why they're doing that? They're doing that because they want to get them into a contract. Because then they can get a social security number and collect taxes and create all sorts of money and all the rest of it. You see what I'm saying?
And become voters, Democratic voters.
And become Democratic voters. But the key is they got to get them into a contract. And that's why they give them all this free money and everything. And
Driving
Give them a driver's
licenses.
license.
well, but they
Contract
got to
number
stop. They got to stop them at the border. And once they're here on the soil of America, they have more rights than anybody that thinks they're a U.S. citizen. I've
Yeah.
talked about that in my videos.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So would they, if someone knew the Articles of Confederation, et cetera, could they would not be subject to deportation then, would they?
Well, again,
Deportation from where?
From,
The United States. That's where you're deported from. You're not deported from a state, you're deported from the United States. Federal.
Yeah, so you're still a state citizen.
Yeah.
they
You can
have
say, where do
to,
you want to be deported to?
that's
New
why,
Jersey.
that's why these, that's why these border guards want to interview you, because they got to build a case. And if you stick to your guns and tell them the right things, there's a guy that, and he's American, but he lives in Panama. And it's my brother-in-law's brother, okay? So my wife's, or my daughter's husband's brother, okay? No, it's not his brother, it's his cousin. He lives in Panama, and when he comes to the U.S., what he'll do is he'll fly to Tijuana, and he'll take his bags and get a taxi up to the border, and he'll walk across the border with his bags. And he'll just walk across like he owns the place, and nobody says anything. And he just walks across the border with his bags, and once he gets on the other side of the border, he'll go and rent a car, and he's back in business. And so,
So how's he
they don't
getting
even
across the
ask him
border?
any questions when he walks across the border. I've gone across the border to Canada, same thing.
Does he
Well-
go through customs to get through the border?
Well, no,
or does he
well,
go across the water?
They have their fence, they have their customs station and everything, but they have the walkway, and you just walk across. You don't go in the building, you just walk across.
Well, you can't, in all the places that I've gone through, I haven't seen any way to do it without going through their customs officers, the ones that check your passport.
I've
Or
never,
your-
I can tell you, like in Canada,
I
you
don't know
can
about
do that
Canada.
easily.
I'm talking Mexico.
yeah, but even, I haven't been to Mexico, so I can't say, but I can tell you that this friend of mine, my wife's brother, my wife's husband, or my daughter's husband's brother, told me about it. And she said that he doesn't come back and forth to Mexico all the time. He lives in Panama. And
Well,
I've never been to Mexico, so I can't say.
yeah, I go down to Mexico to get dental work done, and the dentist that I get the work done from works in Mexico, but he lives in the United States. So he's got to go back and forth, and he's got to go through the fucking customs officers just like I do.
Really?
Yeah.
And they make you go through a customs officer every time?
They've got it, so it goes right down, you gotta go in this door, everything goes through a turnstile,
Oh, really?
and you gotta go through this door, and then they've got three different lines inside where you get checked. They check your documents getting through, and if you have anything to claim, and then they let you go through. And then you go through another maze to get out of there, but it's all single file.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
I
Well,
didn't
now,
know that.
I think they've separated a little bit because Tara's brother, he lives, I forget the name of the town, but he lives in Mexico and San Diego, and he travels between the two.
Well, they might have a friendly pass. for
Yeah, they
people
do.
that
They
do
have
this
a
every
pass
day.
thing that,
Yeah.
like his girlfriend has that quick pass kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where she just goes
It's
straight
like
through.
at the airport with TSA, you can get through if you have a certain pass. So
Yeah.
they might have that set up at some of the border.
Yeah, well they do.
locations.
So she uses that. He doesn't. But he's never in that much of a hurry. So, but he'll look. He'll check forward because sometimes it can be taking 2 hours to do a walkthrough,
I know.
and then others you can 10 minutes. No, I'll go now.
I can
So-
tell you in Canada, you can just walk across, no problem. Matter of fact, there's a lot of places, like there'd be a border station, and there's a road called Boundary Road in British Columbia. And 10 feet away is a road that runs parallel to it. 10, 15 feet at the most, there's a ditch that's maybe 15 feet wide. and there's no fence in there or anything.
So you just go through the ditch.
And you could just walk across. But when I was in Scouts in high school, we went on a 10-mile hike, and we went up to in this remote area down by the border. We went on a 10-mile hike, and we stopped at this bridge and had our lunch, and then we hiked back. 6 months later, I went across the border with my mother, and we crossed that bridge. It was on the U.S. side of the border. There was no sign, no fences, no indication, nothing showing that you're crossing the border. Would have never known. There's all sorts of places like that in Canada. You know, so, and I can tell you that I have actually done that where I would just walk across the border, and I just walk across, and you can go in and talk to them if you want, but you can just keep walking, and nobody comes and says anything.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go in and talk to them. I just walk across, and then coming back, same thing. I
So
just
if you're
walk
driving,
across.
you have a problem then, huh?
Sorry?
If you're driving across, then you have a problem.
Well, even in Canada, Canada's kind of interesting because there's a and this it's kind of unusual, but at least this one at Coots. Okay, Coots, you know what Coots is? Coots are it's I-15. It becomes I-15 on the U.S. side of the border. This is in Alberta. And in Montana it's I-15. Anyways, there's your border station there. Well, there's the last exit, and you go up, and there's a dirt road, and it goes around, and you can get back on the road in Canada, and there's nothing there.
Oh, really?
And you could just drive over there, and nobody would ever be the wiser. It's a little dirt road, but it's, you know, maybe half a mile at the most, all the way around, and you're back up on the road. And when you go into Canada Customs, there's nothing forcing you to go in and talk to them. You can just keep driving, just drive right on through. There's no barricades or anything. The U.S. is different. They have barricades for sure.
So everybody's doing it voluntarily.
But yeah, basically that's right. Well, Canada is more common law. Although I don't know what it's like now because it's with
Closed the
Trudeau.
border for the last year.
It's communist country. Yeah, I don't know what it's like now. But
I'm just thinking about what you said, because I used to go back and forward in Ontario, back and forward into the US, and I did it quite a few times. Now I noticed when I came down into the US, we used to have to go over the Alexander Bridge, both ways actually, but when you hit the US side, you're coming into floodlights, spotlights, you
Right.
drive through,
Right.
takes fucking photos of you from every different angle.
Right.
I'm sure they've got a UV X-ray thing that does it as well before you pull up to the guard.
yeah, you know.
And then they tell you to pull off to the side. Now I always used to go, because I did night drives, I'd never go through the day, but the last time I went through probably around 11 o'clock at night before the night shift went on. Previously, I used to go through at night and I'd pull off to the side, go inside, I'd fill out my own damn form and then give it to them and I'd be on my way. This time I left early because there was a storm, a winter storm, about 6 hours into the drive, and I wanted to get through it before the storm hit. So I left early. I pulled off to where I normally pull off, and you know, like 4 different fucking customs agents come running out of everywhere with their hands on the guns. I said, what the hell? And this more senior woman came over and said, what are you doing? You're supposed to park over there. I said, every time I've come through, they told me to pull in here and then go in the office. That's all I did. The guy said, come in. So I did exactly the same thing. So she's like, it's okay, it's okay. Everybody went back, and then she took me into the office, and then we spent the next 15 minutes going through whatever bullshit on her computer system.
Right.
And then on I went, but always coming back the other way, completely different. There was a section where you would cross the border and you go through a little road section, and then there were two areas. The road would continue, or there'd be a little offshoot to it that would stop at the little pillbox. That's all it was. That was the border, and there'd be an agent sat inside. So you'd pull up to that, and you usually do it automatically. I don't know if anyone ever just drove and carried on. And if they did, what the hell they would do, because I never saw any cars there for them to go chase, and there was only ever one guy. And once you're in Canada, it's a bit of a road, and then that's it, you're on the highway. You're on the main 401. It takes you right across from Toronto into Montreal. So I always used to obviously just pull up to the customs booth and show the passport stuff, and well, I never bothered with the permanent resident card. I didn't need to drive it across, even though they'd ask me for it. Say, well, I don't need it. Do you have one? Maybe, but I don't need it. So because I only need that for commercial travel. So okay, on your way. But yeah, you would always pull over to that. So what he's saying, I kind of remember being the case. I never thought anything of it when I was coming back into Canada. But there's no way you could do it going into the US. Holy shit. We've got barriers, so you can't get through without going through those barriers.
Maybe because of the rights the minute one gets here.
Possibly, yeah. Because, I mean, the one thing that the woman customs officer said when we were doing this 15 minutes, because normally it took me as long to fill out the form, and then that's it, I was on my way previously. Whatever she was going through, I have no idea, clicking through all sorts of different things. But her questions were along the lines of whether I could feed myself and keep myself independent, yeah, of the state. Yeah. That's basically what it was. So I'm answering the questions as to, whether I had money and do I have a business, do I have something to go back to. Yeah, my kids are in Canada, and I'm running the business there. My personal business, not a registered business. But yeah, it took me about 25 minutes, and then they said, okay, off you go. 25 minutes? Yeah.
So Ed, if a public servant fails to honor my revoking his authority, and he or she,
How are they causing you harm?
they were going to put me in handcuffs and arrest me.
How are they causing you harm?
How are they causing me harm? By restricting my movement,
Depriving you of your
depriving
liberty.
me of my liberty.
You've got to know what trespass is. They trespass anytime they take possession. So you don't have to own something. If you have possession of something and they take it from you, it's a trespass. Okay?
I think the other trespass, though, that you have to, because I think the reason that he was going to be arrested was because there was a potential complaint for criminal trespass, which meant that he was told to leave somewhere and refused. Then it becomes criminal trespass.
Yeah, so was it the public library?
It's a public library.
It's a
That's
public-
what his point was.
It's a public accommodation.
Trespass
I
is
can't
not.
trespass.
How can you be trespassing in a public
Because
accommodation?
the cop said it's private property.
Did you, private property? so-
I thought you said trespass is not a crime in New
It
Jersey.
isn't. He was going to arrest me, and I didn't have 2 more days at the time to go through
Mhm.
that whole thing.
So Nelson,
That was-
the question you need to ask him is, I need your proof of claim. You're claiming that it's private property. I need to see proof of your claim.
Right.
They're making a claim, they've got to prove it,
I
not
like
you.
your proof of claim. Good.
Okay.
Proof of claim, please.
Yeah. No, you have to say, since you're making the claim that it's private property, I need to see, I believe you, and I need to see your proof of claim.
I hear you. That would have stopped him because he couldn't have produced
He
it.
couldn't have produced it.
I love it. That would have solved me. That would have been fun. Well, I'm planning on going back again, so I'll have another chance.
So the other thing is the public library not a public accommodation?
I actually
It
think
doesn't matter if it's private, if it's a public accommodation. If you go into If you go into Trader Joe's, it's a public accommodation. It's private property.
He had the policy manual where the woman who's employed by that public accommodations said she didn't want me there.
Interior.
What
There's-
authority does she have to trespass on your rights?
Because
Rights are property.
hid,
Mhm.
I hear it, and again, the officer was hoping I was going to, but I hear what you're saying. Had I just gone down all those steps, I think I could have defeated it at this point.
Right.
But at
So,
the time, I
Could you
There's
could you
a,
pull up the Northwest ordinance again a second? Do you have that
Yeah.
still open?
there is I can get it, but in Arizona, I can tell you, and you see them in Texas too. You go to a Circle K or 7-Eleven, you'll see no trespassing signs. And it'll say no trespassing, business associates and customers accepted or something like that. But so, I think they don't want, basically, anybody that's not there to buy something, they don't want them there. And they can charge them with trespassing.
So think of the word trespassing. Is that present tense?
it's a continuing sentence.
It's continuing, yeah.
It's future tense.
Okay, could be.
So it
Yeah.
should say no trespass.
Do not trespass.
So if the sign says no trespassing, it's meaningless?
It's not a contract. You can't have a contract in the future. It's today. You make a contract in present tense.
Okay, here's the Northwest ordinance.
So they come and they advise.
Yeah, so-
And my question on the Northwest ordinance is,
Go-
is it valid
Okay.
on New Jersey?
So read this. This is Northwest ordinance.
Is it valid on New Jersey?
Now, Article 1.
No person demeaning himself in a peaceable and orderly manner shall ever be molested on account of his mode of worship or religious sentiments in the said territory.
So why were they kicking you out? Why did they say that you were trespassing?
Because I had been accused of printing.
What does that mean?
The rule at the, I was accused of printing
Printing,
paper.
and that's a trespass?
It was a trespass because I was ordered to leave by an authority of the public accommodation, an employee of that public accommodation who was the director.
Yeah, so what would you do today?
Today,
Probably ask him for his,
I would ask for the proof of claim, A, that it's private property, and B, where the authority is to
Trespass on your
trespass
rights.
on my liberty.
On your rights.
My
Rights
right.
is more encompassing.
My
Liberty
rights.
is-
He's gonna say that you don't have a right to be here because she is the authority here and it's private property, which I would then go to the proof of claim.
Claim, right?
That would have been helpful, but the thing is, I think it actually is private property. That was where he got me.
Doesn't
matter.
matter, it's
Trader
public
Joe's is private
accommodation.
property too. But it's a public accommodation, which means that if they want to be a public accommodation,
Well,
they've got to accommodate the public.
you weren't there hanging out, you were using their facility. And I think he's right. It's a public accommodation. You were using their facility and you
I
were,
had been accused of demeaning myself in a way that was causing one of the employees aggravation.
well,
Different employee, that's not my
if the
problem.
employee,
I understand.
if all you were doing is making copies, then, and the employee was aggravated by that, then the employee needs to find a different job.
But you don't, I understand that.
You were paying for the copies?
They were free.
Oh.
But the problem was
Well, but
that,
they're free for everybody.
no, they're not, because I'm overprinting. She told me to bring my own paper 2 days before.
Oh.
And I had a police officer arrive, and we agreed, he and I, that I'll print 10 pages at a time so other people can get in on the game. Because I
So
print,
they had a valid claim.
what was the valid claim?
You were overprinting.
That's not a valid claim.
Well, it's a claim, but
It is.
it's not valid.
Well, what, I
If
mean,
it's free, it's free. It doesn't matter how many.
yeah, I don't
if
know, I
it's-
haven't seen any library where they're free, but.
Yeah, I haven't either.
They
Yeah,
were free
that's
here,
true.
and I've been printing hundreds and hundreds of pages for free.
Okay, so they're probably getting tired of you taking advantage of this, that they.
But that's not my problem. So then I was accused, and I had the woman on
Yeah,
camera
they can't
lying.
discriminate based on that.
Excuse me?
They can't discriminate because you're taking advantage of something that they offer to everybody.
So
Yeah,
what
so
happened?
you're acting in a peaceable and orderly manner,
Well, I'm
doing something that they allow, right? So you're not trespassing.
No, they were saying I was interrupting the employee from doing her job because she would have to go, the printer wasn't working properly. So whenever I would print more than 10 at a time, someone else would hit print. And it conflicted in the printer. And the whole thing would
Oh,
shut
so
down.
it was the Wi-Fi printing? You were printing,
Doesn't matter.
Everyone
There's a
printed
print
it.
spooler. So technically speaking, they should all print
that's right, in order.
into memory in order.
Right.
That's technically how it should happen.
Okay, well, they were having,
Yeah,
all
there
they
may
are,
be problems with the printer.
It's probably a cheap or an old, printer copier.
it is, but 2 days before, I said, call the police. She called the police, we agreed, he and I, Sergeant, and I had him do a report. And it says in there, Nelson and I agreed, 10 pages, and that will solve the problem. 2 days later, I went in to start printing, and I printed nothing, but someone else printed 30 pages, and she thought it was me.
Well, it's,
So here's
She accused me of printing, over-printing,
so
and
here's,
therefore, now that you've done it for the second time, you're out.
here's a better approach. So what you're trying to do is regulate a situation that's going on. And a better approach would be, please forgive me for my trespass. What can I do to remedy this so that we can coexist in a peaceful manner? You want to operate in a peaceful and orderly manner, right? You don't want to confront them. What you want to do is say, please forgive me for my trespass. I realize that I'm causing you trouble, but I have this issue that I need to have these things printed. How can we coexist in a peaceful and orderly manner?
yeah, really.
Right.
Beg forgiveness.
Right?
What it came down to, which I even liked better, is that, well, no, I hear you, but now they've gone ahead and reinstituted the 15 cents a page.
So, now
And
you
I
gotta
sat
pay.
there and everybody that came in was upset. What do you mean it's 15 cents a page? Because it's been free. So they would come in, these little old ladies would come in and print 2 pages. So I printed what I had to print to file my papers with the county for the criminal charges, and it was $64.
Ouch.
So, right.
Wow. But you buy a printer, it's cheaper to buy your own printer.
Yeah, no shit.
Because I want it for free.
But you paid $64, right?
I lent them the money because I had a police officer come in, and it's on file, on where I had him put article, is it 110-1?
Oh, for
With Federal
gold
Reserve
and
notes?
silver reserve, gold and
No
silver.
debt, no state shall make
Yeah.
anything but gold or silver coin
A
in
payment
payment of
of
debt.
payment.
Yeah.
So they said I owed them $64. I said I'm willing to pay, but I want to report because I'm going to be filing a constitutional violation of the
Challenge.
Constitution, asking for a refund, and then on top of that, I'm going to ask them to tell me that I'm allowed to print free forever, until they can accept gold or silver coin in payment of a debt. And I'm about to go in and only print 1 page and have a cop come in every day and do another report. I just haven't had time to get to it.
It comes down to you just have to pick your battles.
No,
Some battles are just not worth the trouble.
Right.
this one is.
Okay, well, I'm not saying don't pick
Yeah.
it. I'm just saying you gotta pick your battles.
And
You
I,
gotta decide which ones, you gotta lay the foundation, and so that you can you know.
Well, the problem was that the public employee, in this town, I've had 15 different, my family's had 15 different public servants commit crimes against us. And she committed a crime because she reported falsely to her director and now to the sergeant that was about to arrest me. I said, I have it right here, and I brought my wire to play it back on any computer. There was 20 computers. I said, can I show you, Miss Director, that your employee just lied about what she's now telling you? And she said, no, the director.
So I would say you may have forced her into doing that by what you did, by, over printing. So, one thing.
I wouldn't have said that she lied. I would say that she's mistaken because, and can I show you? You know what I mean? Anyways.
Or I'm not
I think
persuaded
the public
by.
accommodation thing is something though that
Yeah,
people need to be aware of,
that's right.
because that has been my argument over this whole period with COVID about trying to kick me out of the store, because I've never gone in with a mask, and I've always ended up, certainly in the earlier stages, in the battle. And Target, the worst one was Target. They had the manager come out and the staff refusing to serve us at the checkouts.
Mm.
So here's one thing that Lex Mercatoria found out, and it'll be helpful for you to know.
Well, I knew it because I was
This
informing
is something
the
different.
manager about, because he was saying this is private property.
Yeah.
I was saying it may be private property, but unfortunately it's open for public accommodation, as is the food court over there and the pharmacy, which are both classed as emergency.
I'm going in a different
provisions.
direction. Okay.
Good.
So the distinction is, he had a couple of friends that had the same situation that you had, where it was a public accommodation. They tried all that. The store acted like a Nazi, kicking them out and all that. So they called the legal department at their headquarters, and they told them what was going on. And they said, "Well, we never told you to do that. We obviously have a problem. We apologize for it. Let me make a phone call, and you go back there the next time, and if they give you a problem, you call me back." And the next time they went in there, nobody gave them a sideway glance, because they were misinterpreting, or they were going beyond their authority, and they got their shit kicked out of them by legal, saying you can't do that. Right?
Yeah.
So what you can do is say, so if I call your legal department, they're going to back you up? That's all you have to say.
Oh yeah. Well, I took it as a teaching moment anyway, because not only were there 3 members of staff, the manager, at that point there were about 5 other customers nearby who were also listening in on this conversation, because I was loud enough to make sure everybody heard, and I was particularly impolite to the checkout girl who, we've got the plague or something, because we weren't, actually Tara was wearing a mask, although it was dropped down at the time. Gabby was wearing her mask. So, but I didn't even have one, I refused.
If you look at the sign, it just says you have to wear a mask. It doesn't say how you
wear
wear
it, yeah.
I know what Kerry does. You see what Kerry does?
Puts
He'll
it around
go
his
to
wrist.
he'll go to a Halloween thing and have one of these masks.
Zorro mask.
He'll say, "I got the mask on." Well, it doesn't say what mask.
That's right.
That's interesting.
I've used all sorts of different things to deal with people, but funnily enough, the majority of people I ended up having to deal with, the Target instance was caused by a customer who freaked out, and I told them where to go because I said I don't have to wear a mask.
Right, the mask police are running around everywhere.
Yeah.
They are.
So they were the ones
public was
that
becoming the mask
reported
police. That's
to
up
the
to
members
them.
of staff, and then the members of staff got involved, then the manager got involved, and then everybody refused to serve us.
Right, and then the public does, the manager doesn't want to tell the other customers that the mask mandate doesn't matter.
Yeah.
No,
Because they're obeying it, meaning the other customers.
Yeah. So, but the others other stores I've been to, the arguments I ever had, short term, because I usually just walk away, but it was customers, it wasn't the members of staff. I was grateful on many of the places because some of them were kids as well. Some of them were quite respectful and said, "Sir, do you have a mask?" And I just turned around, "Sorry, I don't."
Do you think it's bad here? Go to Vegas. I was in Vegas here like about 3 weeks ago, and there's signs on all the stores. You know, the governor has issued a mandate, everybody has to wear a mask, do not enter unless you have a mask, that kind of stuff. I walked in, no mask,
Yeah.
and I had to go to the bathroom. I was looking for the bathroom, I found the bathroom, it had a lock on it, couldn't get into it. A store employee saw me trying to get into the bathroom, came over, punched the code in, so then he let me in. He had a mask on, he didn't say anything about my mask.
No.
And everybody in there had a mask on, except, you know, later on that day, I went in there looking for something, and there was a few people in there that didn't have masks, very few, but there was people in there. Nobody was saying anything to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they weren't.
Well, that's what's happening more now, even in New Jersey. I'm noticing that there are a lot
They're
more
not
people
as-
Right,
not wearing masks, and
right,
now there's nobody confronting you about it. Before,
Right.
you know, the staff were doing it, customers
know.
were doing it.
yeah, and I would teach it like treat it like a teaching opportunity.
Mhm.
And tell them, you know, that's a felony.
Yeah.
And it's a felony because that's not a law, and so it's color of law, and it's a felony to violate somebody's rights under the color of law. And look it up, Title 18, United States Code, Section 242.
Oh, I did one better. I printed out the sheet
Well, there you
for the
go,
people that had all the different
there you go.
potential offences that they were committing. I said, "You better read that."
Yeah.
Then walked away, and that's what I got to after about 4 months of having
Right.
actual conversations,
Right,
and them not believing and not knowing.
yeah,
But I mean, this was staff, customers. Once I realised it was customers, I'd have a bit of a conversation, depending on my mood, because sometimes I felt like, you know, winding people up,
yeah,
getting them all bent out of shape. One woman went ballistic and running out, and there were cops outside, because I think it was the opening day for Lidl or something that we went to, Lidl, however they pronounce it. And we were in there, and I wasn't wearing a mask again. This was in the first part of it, and the cops were outside. And there was, I think they must have been changing over, because there was 2 cars and 2 cops. And we come out pushing our trolley of foodstuffs to the car, and actually there was 2 women, went to the cops, and Tara, I wasn't interested, but Tara heard her, like, to the cops, like, you know, causing the danger, and, you know, they're not wearing a mask, and it could be contagious, and blah, blah, blah. You got to tell them to go and do something, give them a ticket or something. And the cop's like, "We can't do anything if they're saying that they're exempt from wearing a mask. They're exempt from wearing a mask." She was going ballistic, absolutely nutso.
They're what I call them watcher checkers. That's what they are. They're just these little old ladies that are on a power
busybodies.
Busybodies.
busybody.
Yeah.
When I was in Texas, there was this was in 2020, I went to this Walmart, and they had a cop there. And I walked in, no mask, and I was at the checkout stand. And the manager comes up to me, comes up with the cop. And I said to the cop, I said, "You know that's a felony. Are you the guy that are complaining about this? Because he's committing a felony. You know he's committing a felony." And the cop knew it. The cop knew it. But I said, "You know what? You know, I got a mask here just to make everybody happy. I put it on." But after that, there was never a cop at that Walmart, because, you know, I'll bet you he went to his chief and he said, "You know, we're exposing ourselves to liability here in this matter." And so they said, "We better not go over there anymore."
What state,
You know what I mean?
What state was it?
That was in Texas. Yeah. And that Walmart just got so Nazi about it that they told me I was cussing them out, and they said, "Don't come back." And I said, "Okay, no problem, I won't come back." And I haven't been back since. And they were really getting Nazi about it, you know.
Well, I've not been back to that Target either.
Yeah,
Refused to go back.
yeah.
At Target, I mean, some of these stores are just shooting themselves in the foot.
Well, they are.
Yeah,
They're crazy. Costco was like that, and
Yeah.
Trader Joe's.
Costco you have to be careful with though, because that's a private membership.
I know.
Yeah, that is.
So it's still a
That's-
public accommodation.
Not for shopping. For certain things, you don't need the
For walking.
membership, like gas. You can go to the gas pumps and pump gas. But you don't need a membership for that. But you can't go shopping. You have to have the membership to go shopping in there. Or some form of permission, but they give you that permission to do it. And that's part of the rules. Now, the funny thing is though, I'm a member of BJ's, which is another private membership,
Mhm.
but I did the same thing. I went into BJ's about it and said I'm exempt, according to, I can't remember the section and whatever of the order now, but the governor's order, and I said I'm exempt from wearing a mask. And it's written into the governor's order. And the people I was talking to initially wouldn't believe me. They called the manager down. And he must have been aware, because as soon as I brought it up to his attention, straight away he said, "You're okay, sir? Carry on. I'm aware. Thank you very much. Have a great day."
Yeah.
And off we went. But that again is the same thing. It's a private membership, but they still honoured the exemption from the governor's order.
Well, they're still subject to the governor's order. That's the way
Of
to
course
do
they
it.
are, yeah. But they didn't use it as a private membership issue the same way Costco did.
Right.
What state was that?
Here in New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Is it really private property if the overlay is DC? Anything, is anything private property?
Well, that's a good point.
You know what I'm saying?
Technically,
It's
when
a
you have-
registered business.
Technically,
that's all
when
that-
you have a corporate franchise, and I show it in my videos, that when you have a franchise, that is an agency of the government,
Mhm.
and so it's owned by the government.
So just like I was in the police station, which was a public building on land, it was built on the land, around the land. If I'm in a public accommodations private store, they have permission to exist by DC.
Well, they're taking Federal Reserve notes. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that says DC.
Going back to what Glenn said, I think I would disagree a little bit with what you said. I mean, I agree and I disagree with it. The part I disagree about is that they are part of the federal government, but they are a private corporation. They're all listed in DUNS,
Right.
right, as private corporations.
Right.
So they technically only have jurisdiction on what they own. Remember, it goes back to 1817.
Right.
They have to purchase the land and have it ceded by the
So
legislature.
So they're in a contract with the government. So then
Registration.
that's
You
why they're
register your
subject.
business.
That's why they're
A
subject,
business license.
Right.
and they're subject to government regulations.
Correct.
But that doesn't mean that I'm subject to government
Exactly.
regulations.
Exactly.
So when the government, when these cops come and arrest you on the road, unless they own that road, they have a title to it, they can't technically arrest you there. They don't have territorial jurisdiction. Remember, the overlay government is not overlaying the whole state, it's only overlaying the part that they own. Get it?
Right, and they're operating anywhere
Yeah.
else outside of jurisdiction.
Yeah, really, police
Exactly.
officers are security officers. That's all they are, is they're security officers for the city. And they're there to protect city property. That's all they're there for. But they get confused
But they
until
do,
somebody like us comes up and straightens them out.
I think they do have minimum contacts, and maybe Carl can enlighten us on this. I think they do have minimum contacts for breach of the peace, for an emergency, or for, if they have a warrant, but not for fucking contracts.
No, that's all civil.
It's all civil.
Right, so really, there's only 3 reasons you should be talking to me.
If you're
sir.
breaching the peace, they can come in and correct that. If you're creating a safety incident, if it's a cop and
Emergency.
they're patrolling the roads and it creates a safety incident, they do have minimum contact there because that was the original purpose of the police force is to help motorists that are in trouble on the side of the road or creating safety situations.
That's their martial law mission, safety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes back. Jackie Fig used to tell this story. Let me go back all the way to the beginning. So we go back to the beginning. The kings were responsible for maintaining the roads in the kingdoms in England. And what was happening was the king was getting upset because the people would take their cattle and their sheep and stuff
Ruining
like that,
his roads.
and they'd move them from pasture to pasture, but they'd go down the roads with them, and those cattle and the sheep and things like that would tear up the roads. So the king says, we need to find some way to mitigate this thing, so I'm not paying so much money to maintain these roads. So what they did was they created a license for a driver to drive the cattle.
Makes sense.
That's where the fucking word driver comes from.
Right.
It's driving cattle and,
Right.
and sheep and shit like that
Right.
to pasture to pasture.
Right.
So then they keep finding ways to expand that realm of theirs. But that was where the original jurisdiction came from, to minimize the damage, because those became commercial entities transporting the cattle and the
And
sheep.
that was a just and fair license.
Yeah. And it was
reasonable.
it was good for the public and it was good for the king,
Right.
because the roads were better maintained. And when you think about the commercial licenses that we have today, they're to prevent these big trucks from breaking the roads up, right? That's the whole purpose of the thing. It wasn't for you and I to have a driver license and operate in commerce, just driving down the road, unless we're in an 18-passenger van hauling passengers
Well,
for
I
fair
think,
fee.
no, I think like a livery was one live person in the back of your cart.
Yeah, well, that was taxi for hire kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's what that.
And it made sense because you're engaged in
commerce.
profit, in a profit-making enterprise on the road.
Yeah.
You're not, it's no longer a personal use,
Right.
Yes.
a man's use.
Yeah.
It's now, I'm getting a benefit by the fare that I'm charged.
So now take it to the next step, and that is, okay, so you have these drivers. So what happens in the West? You have these farmers that have cattle, right? They have these big cattle ranches, and they drive their cattle. And what do they do to their cattle? They brand them, right? They put a brand on their cattle. They don't put a different brand on each cow. They put the same brand on every cow. So if you put your private brand on your car, that plate that you put on your car,
Yeah.
that plate there is a private brand. You don't have to have 20 different plates if you have 20 different cars. You put the same plate on all the cars because that's your brand on your property. That cattle is their property. So you don't need a driver license because you're not driving cattle. You're not driving things commercially. But you're branding your property so that nobody can steal it. You can tell your property from the next guy's property, right? It doesn't have to be 20 different plates. It can be the same exact plate. And that's in Arizona, I get by with it because they've got, in their constitution, it says, all household goods are tax exempt, and the owner of the household good does not have to take any affirmative action to claim such exemption. And then in their tax handbook, they say that the license registration fee is an ad valorem tax, which is a business tax. So that's in conflict with the Constitution. If it's a household good, it's not a business. It's a non-business, right? So you don't have to pay the ad valorem tax on it, right?
Well, that's one of the arguments for property tax too. Once you purchased a home, even though you're using Federal Reserve notes, technically it's purchased, it's free of any, even the FRN liens against it, it's paid. Ad valorem tax will be another issue because it becomes private property then. It's bought and paid for, you got the deed for it.
But the property tax on it becomes a problem for them based on, are you familiar with 31 USC 3124? It says
Not
stocks
the
and,
number,
stocks and obligations
Oh,
of the United
the
States
United States,
government
yeah.
are exempt from taxation by any state or
Mhm.
subdivision of a state. And if it's used in any calculation, it's also exempt from taxation. So that's pretty straightforward, isn't it? And stocks and obligations include Federal Reserve notes. So they can't ask for Federal Reserve notes for payment of those taxes because they're exempt. Right? And it's in the law. And the Supremacy Clause says that they have to follow the laws of the United States.
Well, I know that would be something interesting for where we're living at the moment, my mother-in-law, because our property taxes are about $10,000 a year.
Yeah, they're $10,000 too.
Yeah.
And we're funding the servants who are abusing their.
Abusing us, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, right. So we're actually helping our own punishment, right?
Paying for it.
Right, we're paying for our own punishment.
Yeah, but again, that
That's
all
like
comes
throwing
down
a
to the District
boomerang
of
or
Columbia.
a heat-seeking missile that's coming back at us. We launch it and it, oh, I'm sorry.
That's right.
Well, it all comes down to DC codes, right? If they want Federal Reserve notes, then that's DC. That's the bottom line. Matter of fact, I'll pull that up.
Now, Ed, while he's doing that, can I presume you're free from property tax everywhere you are?
I haven't paid it, but I've got liens on my house right now, so I'm.
You can do the Form 1020.
I have.
You gotta see, well, you file a bar grievance against the county attorney. You invite the county attorney when you're doing the Form 1020, you gotta include the county
I
attorney.
did. I sent it to them. I sent it to the county solicitor.
Right.
In care of the. I sent it to the claims superintendent in care of the county solicitor. So I sent it to her and I said, please get this to the claims supervisor. It needs your immediate attention, blah, blah, blah. So it went through her.
I wouldn't have mixed it up that way. If you're
Yeah.
gonna send that separately,
Send it direct.
send it direct, yeah. But the bottom line is you file a bar grievance against the county attorney now. And
She's not performing her duty.
yeah, right, she's supposed to discharge it. Right? And find out if the tax assessor collector is an attorney. And if they are, you can do a search on the bar, State Bar's website, you'll find out if they're an attorney.
That's a fantastic.
If they are, then you file a bar grievance against them. A lot of times they are.
The
Do you
judge,
have examples of the bar grievance that you put in for that particular situation?
I just bring up all the felonies. You know, I pattern them after, like in Texas, there's statutory,
242.
well, and official oppression, misapplying the law to the facts of the matter,
18
theft,
USC 912.
subjecting you to a satanic religious ceremony, and perjury of oath. Okay, again, they're wanting Federal Reserve notes. Outside Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? And so you can go after them all for perjury of oath. You need to find out, you're in Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah.
So you need to find out if there's statutory requirements for a
In
criminal
Arizona.
complaint. Sorry?
I've got a place in Arizona too.
Oh, Arizona's easy.
Is it?
Oh, it's easy. You just don't file an affidavit of property value.
But I already own the house.
Hmm.
Already purchased it.
I would transfer it then if you can. You
Just
don't
do a
file.
self-to-self
I own
transfer?
I own several properties in Arizona,
Do you?
and I just matter of fact, what I'll do is I'll send a deed to them without the affidavit of property value.
Yeah, I went to in Pennsylvania, I went to the recorder's office and they said that I could file a self-to-self transfer, but I would need to send in the affidavit of transfer to the state. And that's the affidavit you're talking about, right? Affidavit of property value?
Well, and yeah, probably, I don't know what it is in Pennsylvania, it could be. The affidavit of property value is what brings in the Federal Reserve note. And what you do is you say on the deed, that's why you have to transfer it, because it's got to show that gold or silver coin was paid. Now, I can send you a confirmatory instrument, which is how someone has done it without, they bring forward all the rights and privileges of the land patent. But,
Yeah.
but
my
the
property
Federal
is
Reserve
on land
notes,
patent.
huh?
My property sits on an original land patent, so it's been transferred to the state. It's been transferred from the state to a railroad company, so that means that the state has no interest in that property.
Right. So, but what the Federal Reserve notes is a very important part of their taxing scheme. Because if you think about it, Federal Reserve notes are bills of credit, right?
Yep.
Well, so then you bought it, you paid for it with United States credit. If you pay for something with someone else's credit, who owns it?
They did.
They do.
So if you pay for it with gold or silver coin, that's a problem. So what I would do, what I do when I do it is I have structures, okay, like an LLC or a trust. I'll buy it under the trust of the LLC, and then when I want to transfer it to me, the man, I put all my wording in it, bring up the land patent, I do everything that I want to do, and I'll transfer it to me. And then I'll accept it too. Matter of fact, I have one that I did downstairs. I'll bring it up tomorrow,
Okay.
and you can see it. So the seller signs it, okay, and then I sign it. In the case, the one that I did is owned by a trust previously. I was the manager of the trust, so I got the trustee to sign for the trust, which is proper, and then I signed for me. And I brought forward all the rights and privileges of the land patent. I was in a hurry, so I didn't attach the land patent to it, but I referenced it in the paperwork. I usually attach it.
Not your land patent, but the original land patent, right?
Well, I don't have a land patent.
So you just reference it
I
off.
referenced the original land
Yeah.
patent, that's right. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Because in the original land patent, it says that this land is granted to Joe Blow, his heirs and or assigns forever.
Right.
And I'm gonna sign.
Yeah.
And it doesn't say anything about property taxes.
Right.
So that's all that matters.
That's right.
But it's gotta be
Plus-
gold or
plus-
silver coin.
Plus it matters because if the state doesn't own the property, they have no taxing jurisdiction.
Well, there you go.
Right.
But if you pay with Federal Reserve notes, then the question is who owns it? You have an equitable interest, you know, in these satanic equity courts, but you don't have, you know, what do they call it? Legal interest.
Yeah.
You have an equitable title, but no legal title.
Right.
And
But if you put it in a trust and you pay with silver dollars,
well, what I do is I have the trust buy it, and then the trust sells it to me for gold or silver coin.
right?
And bring forward all the rights and privileges of the land patent. You can look at it and see.
Okay.
And then I accept it too.
Yeah.
So now it's a contract, because there's a seller and a buyer.
Acknowledgement. Right?
That's right. I accept the deed.
Yep.
And so now that's a problem. It's a contract.
Yep. And then they can't
And
make any laws.
There's a lady in Texas that went through a foreclosure. And she did nothing right. But she went through a foreclosure, and she's in the house 10 years later.
Because she has a land patent.
And no, but what happened is she'd been out of work, couldn't afford. It was a nice house. It was in an expensive area, $350,000-$400,000 house, and that's expensive in Texas. You can buy brand new houses right now for under $100,000 in Texas.
Yeah, I know. Real estate's pretty inexpensive in Texas.
Anyways, so she couldn't afford to pay the $10,000 a year in property taxes. And she went down to the county tax assessor and started reading them the Riot Act, saying, who rendered this property for taxation? I'm going to sue their butt off. And the county tax assessor immediately said, don't worry, we'll take it off the tax rolls. I'm serious.
That's all she said?
Yeah. In Texas, it has to be rendered.
What does that mean?
Well, that's part of taxation. Any taxable stuff has to be rendered for taxation. In other words, you have to give it to them for taxation.
Oh boy, I guess I probably gave it to him, didn't I?
Well, so, you know, I don't know. But a lot of times, like in Arizona, when you sign that affidavit of property value, That's how they get it, because it says right on there how much you paid, and it's in Federal Reserve notes that it's denominated. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that's why what I do, and I've done a bunch of them, and I have land patents on all of them, and one of them I took to the Ninth Circuit, and they haven't bothered me at all about it since then.
So I found out from Pennsylvania you can do a self-to-self transfer.
Well, you can, and that's all well and fine, but it's still not being paid with gold or silver coin.
But if you do a self-to-self transfer, you can
Claim all the rights and privileges of the land patent, that's true, but you still haven't paid for it with lawful money. You can try that, you can do the confirmatory instrument, it might help, and you need to look in the Pennsylvania statutes and see if there's anything about rendering in the tax code. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And or rendition. In Texas, every state has different codes, and they're all so different that you just can't say. But that would be one way of approaching it. If you can do that, and
Well, I can do it in Arizona at least, right?
well, no, that's Texas.
No, you were saying in Arizona.
In Arizona, you'd have to transfer it again.
Yeah, transfer it to a
Transfer
trust.
it to anything, and don't file the affidavit of property value.
Oh, just transfer it once?
Well, whatever, transfer it however many times you want. What I would do, if you have the ability, is I would transfer it to a structure and then give it about a year and then transfer it back to you, and then make it the way you want it, and then don't file the affidavit. So I pay the taxes for now and set it up. See what I'm saying? And but I've done it like that lots of times. I've got several parcels. I've got 1 acre parcels, 5 acre. I got one 5 acre parcel, like 4 or 5 1 acre parcels, and it was no problem. One of them I took to the. It was a 1 acre parcel, and it was in Holbrook. It's no, it's not Apache County. It's
Up on Interstate 40?
yeah. Anyways, I took them to the Ninth Circuit, and they haven't bothered me since. And it got dismissed, but they haven't bothered me. So that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Somebody told them. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, they scuffed up.
Yeah. And so Arizona's is pretty easy because of that affidavit of property value. Texas can be a little more difficult. I have one, like this one that I did, they sent me a tax bill. So I'm gonna have to go there when I get back, is I'll go there and I'll tell them who rented this property for taxation. I'm gonna sue your butt off and let them tell me they're gonna take it off the tax rolls.
So the typical closing table, the one purchasing it renders it for taxation. You sign everything and turn it over.
Well, if you go through a title company, for sure, okay? Matter of fact, there's title companies, there's people that have told me that they'd be bringing forward the land patent, and it would be with the title company, and the title company flatly tell them, we can't sell you title insurance on this. Well, if you think about it, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Because they have to have an insurable interest. And if you have the land patent, nobody can touch it.
Right.
And so they would be a fraud for them to sell you insurance on it, because the land patent is superior to any insurance.
Yep.
And so they wouldn't be able to sell you insurance. And then I've had other people say that the title company told them, well, you'll never get a bank loan on this. And that's true too. There's a guy that I know in Texas, I helped him bring forward his land patent. The county went and sold it, he died. And his family weren't interested in trying to defend it. So the county sold it at a tax sale. The guy that bought it was the neighbor, is the mayor, who happened to be the mayor. And a friend of mine was talking to the mayor, and the mayor told him that the banks wouldn't finance it. They wouldn't touch it. He had to get private financing to pay for this thing.
Because you couldn't get the right title on
Because it had a patent on it.
it. Yeah.
Banks wouldn't finance it. And the reason is because they'll never be able to they'll never be able to seize it.
Cool.
So, I mean, it's powerful. It's really powerful, but you gotta do it right. It's really powerful.
I need to see that document that you did for Arizona.
Sure.
I'm gonna do
Sure.
that.
I'll send you a Word file. I see you sent me that appointment for that, what I'd like is maybe documents that they use, or if they have any, maybe if they have a website or something like that.
Well, what you do is you get on there, and they're looking for people to set up these petite grand juries. Is
Uh-huh.
that what you're talking about? The
Yeah.
grand juries?
Mhm.
They're looking for people to set those things up, so they'll help you set it up. They'll give you everything you need to set it up.
Okay.
They're looking for somebody who's going to take the lead on it, but you got to come up with 12 people.
Oh, I can come up with 12 people, no
in
problem.
one county. It's got to be
No problem,
per county.
no problem.
Yeah. So,
I've got,
but you have to have an alternate too. So you need 13 people total for a petite grand jury, and then you're good to go. And you guys can set.
I
your
gotta
own
pitch
agenda.
it to these other guys, it's all, but I gotta find out all about it and be able to explain it to them, and so they know.
Well, just tell them you can go in and audit these corrupt government officials, and they can't do shit about it.
I know a lot of people that would be very interested in
Oh yeah.
that. And Texas, there's a lot of people like us in Texas. let me
Yeah, I
tell
know
you.
it. I know it.
Now,
Anyways.
The pettit jury, I think we have, maybe it's a pettit grand jury here. I mean, they call it by the same thing,
Do it.
but does a pettit jury in your vernacular, a man or woman cannot be a U.S. citizen, correct?
I don't know. I don't think
That-
you don't want to be a U.S. citizen, no, right?
Right, but the point is that how far does someone have to go in our world to where they're no longer connected to their world, meaning the U.S. citizenship world?
Oh,
Like
First thing is get off
Resign
the
from-
voter registration.
excuse me?
Get off the voter registration.
Right, I
which is
did
the
that,
first thing.
right, so that would be, so that, therefore, as soon as you're off of that, maybe that's it. If you're not in that
No.
system of
No,
law,
the rest of it is contractual stuff, so it's performance. So if you're using the social security number, you're using other aspects of the
Actually,
system.
they treat everything separate. So I know people that collect Social Security and they're considered a sovereign citizen,
Right.
okay?
Just like me in my case, I
And
yeah.
so they treat everything separate, and it comes down to, remember, hearsay evidence is inadmissible in a court unless you admit it. And so make sure you don't admit any hearsay evidence. And Social Security numbers, driver's licenses, all of that stuff is hearsay.
And they're also related to the legal name, not me the man.
Well, that's true. That's true. And so that's why I like the criminal complaints, because they're bringing DC codes onto the land of New Jersey in violation of Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, and their oath of office. And anytime they're like anything, just
Yeah.
about anything they
Just
do.
about anything.
When Federal Reserve notes are involved, that's real easy. But there's other stuff they do too, like the Sestake Trust. When they're assaulting you with that Sestake Trust, that's DC codes. And they got no business bringing that outside of Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17.
Yep.
That has no business here in New Jersey.
Right.
And so again, there's a whole bunch of reasons why they're doing that. You see what I'm saying?
So do any of you guys have your Social Security card here?
No, I cut that thing up and sent it back a long time ago.
Did you? Anybody?
I could,
I never applied for one, so.
Did you?
I don't have it on me, but yeah, I still possess one, yes.
Why don't you go get it once? Because there's a number on the back of it. I want to see what it is, and I can tell you what you need to do to change that. There's a SS5FS foreign state that you need to fill out, and there's a special way to do it so you can transfer it, because if you do an SS5, a normal SS5, you're going to get a number on the back that's got a C or something like that on it, starting with the letter C, which puts you in Chicago. That's where the archdiocese is, the ecumenical,
The gangsters.
that's where the gangsters are. and you're under ecumenical law, you're under the Roman cult law, and when you do the SS5-FS, and if you use, if you don't claim that you're a U.S. citizen, you check other, and then you put 8 U.S.C. 1101 A21, it says that you're in you're a state national. And then you fill out the rest of it pretty much the same way that you would the SS5, with a small tweak on the last line where you don't claim you're a U.S. citizen again.
And the reason for doing that is what?
What happens is you get a new Social Security card, and on the back of it, it's got a number that starts with the letter H, which puts it in St. Louis. And what's in St. Louis?
The archives?
The Arch.
Okay, the arch, what about the arch?
The arch to the, it's the arch to the, it's the passage to the land. It puts you on the land jurisdiction. As opposed to the ecumenical, which is the admiralty.
Roman cult.
It's the admiralty and it's the air, the spiritual thing, right? So it's taking you and putting you on the land jurisdiction. It takes you out of that ecumenical contract that they have.
That's the first I heard of that.
New stuff.
I'll tell you, definitely lots of new stuff, for sure.
Mhm.
I need you to, if you would be so kind, as repeat your US 8, whatever it was, USC 8.
It's 8 USC 1101 A21.
8 USC 1101.
Yep.
That's American national, isn't it?
State national.
State.
1101.
Yeah, look it up. Can you put it on the screen, please?
Now, does the state national refer to your current state or state of birth?
It doesn't matter if it's a state.
Yeah, it wouldn't matter.
Okay. It's
That's
just
right.
what you're claiming for,
It's
that's
just,
all.
it's just so you're not a U.S. citizen.
1101,
A21. Just put in 1101 and we'll scroll down to A21. There you go.
State national.
Find it? It's way down. It's way
I
down.
like to make Word documents, and that way I can search by a word and find it. Because I can't, you have to look at something more than once to get it. I'm not one with a photographic memory.
21 right there. The term national means a person owing permanent allegiance to a state.
wow, I like that.
Bingo!
But some would say that they don't, like, for example, Charlie Dan, he doesn't claim any citizenship. He's a free inhabitant.
No, he claims his citizenship when he does his 1817. He says he's a state national. I've got a
See,
copy of
you
it.
gotta look at this that I did. Where did I put
I
it?
think he talks about free.
It's
inhabitant
someone that
because
sent
it's
it to
the
me.
original organic.
If you go back to the Northwest Ordinance, it's free inhabitant, right?
Yeah.
And at that stage, they didn't have the inhabitant meant a resident. It does today, but back then I don't think it did.
No.
So if you go back to the Northwest Ordinance, now you're saying a free inhabitant has a proper context.
Mhm.
Why is that?
But what Charlie does is he says, I can be a citizen one day and I can be a state national the next day. But he does claim on the 1870 that he's a state national. He doesn't claim that he's a free inhabitant.
He claims the United States national.
Not on the copy I got from his, that he put in the, what do you call it, the Administrating-Your-Public-Servants to that state national.
How recent was that?
Probably in the last 2 months.
United States national, pretty sure.
Yeah, I think I have it right in here.
You could be right. And he's always improving.
Here, get a load of this. This is a, that's not it. There. notice of calling allegiance, election and allegiance. This is a friend of mine did this from jail. He was in federal jail, and he made about, I don't know, 15 of them, sent them to his wife, told him to mail them out to a bunch of places. A week later, they kicked him out of there.
I'd like the United States of America.
Anyways, so this is the idea being is that when you turn 18,
Yeah.
you're supposed to declare your nationality. And especially, like my mother was American, and this I was given birth in Canada, in Alberta, not in Canada. And my father was Ontario, which is not even Alberta, and I was given birth in Alberta. So there's certainly a room where I could claim all sorts of different things. But so what I did is I claimed Oklahoma. That's where my mother was from. And I sent this to the U.S. Secretary of State. I sent it to Oklahoma, although they sent it back. I sent it to, anyways, get a load of this. This is a notice to the United States, the Crown, the Vatican, and all of the herein as spiritual peer and herein oath of allegiance to the land, the people, the government of the nation state of Oklahoma, to be placed in the registry of the people. The author, the offspring of holy wedlock, of native Albertian Roderick Murray Fern, of native Oklahomian Hazel Winningham, born on the soil of Peace River, Alberta, Peace River County, as a spiritual peer, prays, my father, Fern, he art in heaven. Hallowed be my name, my kingdom come, my will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give me this day my daily bread. Forgive me my debts as I forgive my debtors. Lead me not into temptation, but deliver me from evil. For mine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. The author do solemnly declare my oath of allegiance to the Almighty Creator, the land and people of his government in and of Oklahoma, a republic and United State, united in the Articles of Confederation, one of 4 organic laws of the United States of America. The author herewith makes record of his coming of age and his repudiation, rejection, and renouncing of the person of the child. Glenn Winningham Fern, date of birth 9/4/57, on file with the Alberta Department of Vital Statistics, file number, blah, blah, blah. The author declared under penalty of perjury and the laws of the United States of America that the foregoing is true and correct, executed on this 19th day of August 2021. And
So remember what we talked about earlier. Morris was saying you need to rescind infancy and you need to rescind minorship.
yeah,
So that's the same thing.
That's-
Go back up to what he said. He said he didn't say rescinded, he did something else.
yeah, I repudiated it.
No, it was age of repudiation, rejection.
Repudiation, rejection, renouncing of the person of the child.
Yeah, so all you really have to do, I think, is just rescind it. It's an obligation. The child is an obligation that hasn't been rescinded. It's an obligation, and it gives you a duty that you have to do.
See, the problem with that is that's in the Uniform Commercial Code, and so you're bringing in international law, although this is international law too. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I'd have to redo this thing, I'll have to think about it. But this is the birth certificate,
Yeah.
and
You're
where
doing
it
the live
says,
birth.
sorry?
You're doing the live birth as opposed to the birth certificate.
That's true, yeah. And see what happened, and I didn't want to confuse the issue, but my dad died when I was 12 years old, and my mother got remarried, and I got adopted. And so Murray Fern is my stepfather. I was adopted though, so on the records, he's my father. And so, but I've got brothers. I got 4 brothers that are still alive, and their last names are all Gobro. That's my blood, my name. But anyways, it shows that my mother was American in Territorial, Oklahoma, where her birthplace was. So
That's interesting.
that's
So
easy
she's
for me.
American.
Yeah, American. That's
Yeah,
right,
that's
American.
interesting.
And so it's easy for me to claim Oklahoma nationality.
Yeah.
Well, if is Terrell, Oklahoma on that land of the, was it the Sioux, what tribe was just claiming that?
Cherokee, wasn't
Cherokee?
Cherokees, it might be, I don't know.
So the land jurisdiction is actually Cherokee, on much of it. I don't know if it's all.
Well, that'd go back to federal. I'd rather not do that. Anyways, yeah, so this is, and this is the back. It's a certified copy. Notice it's a red certification stamp in Alberta. Anyways.
That's interesting.
So it's similar to what you're talking about. Now, I sent this to Alberta Probate Court to get it recorded, and they sent it back. And that was that letter that I was sending, that I saw was sent at postal for Q, because they accused me of being a freeman on the land, and they wouldn't file it because of that. But in their order, it said that you can appeal to the judge. So that was a letter to the judge saying that, explaining what I'm doing, and I basically said that if there's another, if that's not the proper filing location, then please advise. You know.
So you gotta do what Kerry does when they accuse you of being a free man on the land. You send a note back saying, is that a good thing?
Well,
What
and
can
so
I do to be a better free man on the land?
actually, what I did say, does that mean there's no free people in your country? And then, or does that mean that that free people aren't allowed into your court?
Or does that mean that you register and record people as property? Right?
Yeah, I didn't want to go there. But at any rate, so hopefully they'll either tell them to file it or tell me the proper place to file it. You know what I mean? So,
That's interesting.
yeah.
You know, one thing I've also heard is that to get out of being a minor, you have to claim your securities. Have you ever heard that?
I haven't. Actually, I have. That's stuff again going into international law, and I try and stay away from that. Stay strictly in common law. I mean, securities. That's all Uniform Commercial Code and all of that stuff. You see what I'm saying?
Is it?
commerce stuff as well. I hate getting anything to do with that because the feds will bounce on you real fast.
Well, yeah. I've heard of that, but I try and stay away from anything Uniform Commercial Code.
Well, you're claiming something that doesn't belong to you.
Well, a birth certificate, yeah, it's theirs. It's their property.
Yeah, that's right. You don't want to claim it.
No.
But you're a co-user and a co-heir.
Well, but I don't even want to claim that I'm a beneficiary. Although I like your argument, what you're saying there, and I think that's probably an interesting approach. There's a guy in Canada that I know that he would go in there and he would say that he would say something like, I think I even wrote it down here because I thought it was pretty interesting. Oh yeah. He would say, they'd call the name, and he would say, I'm a beneficiary of trust with that name, and I hereby make you trustee. And I demand that you settle this matter right now, immediately. Now, are you going to settle this matter, or do I have to sue you for breach of trust? And the judge would get up, throw off his black robe, and walk away.
See, but what I've learned is the judge can't be the trustee. You know why?
Why?
Because they're an impartial person in there. But the court can be the trustee.
Well, he would do it. He would do that, and this was in Canada, of course, which is, I don't think it's any different. I think they're all the same. But he would do that, and he would say, I appoint you as a trustee. So he doesn't certainly start off as trustee. But once he gets appointed to be trustee, you know, I don't know if he can weasel out of it. The only way I could see is maybe if he walks out of the courtroom and then comes back, you know what I mean?
Wouldn't he have to declare himself the beneficiary though first? to be
Well-
able to then declare
Yeah,
him
that would
the
be
trustee.
the best way.
What
to
he
do
would,
it.
what
Is
he
he-
would,
Who is he then, right?
Yeah,
If he
who,
doesn't-
who the
Well,
hell are
that's-
you two?
that's
Right.
what-
Trustee.
that's
Right.
what he would say, is he would say, they called the name, and he would say, I'm a beneficiary of a trust with that name.
Okay.
And then he would say, and I hereby appoint you to be trustee, and I demand that you settle this matter right now. And now, are you gonna settle this matter, or do I have to sue you for breach of trust? And the judge gets up, throws off his black robe, walks out.
It's good. I like that. But I think if you preface it with saying, is it your intention to harm me, the beneficiary,
I
in this
love
matter
that.
today?
I love that.
It puts them right back on their heels, and they don't
Yeah.
know what the hell to do. And then
Yeah.
you can get them in a
And
the fact that
based
they're
on your
intending to cause
silence,
you harm because they're not going to say anything.
Yeah.
based on your silence, then I have to assume, or it's
Presume.
presumed that you're gonna harm me
Your
today.
intention is to harm
Your
the
intention.
beneficiary
There you
in
go.
this matter today.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, that's perfect. I really like that. I'd like to, if you could send me the text of that, I'd have to write that down and make
Oh,
sure I
I've
get
got
that, because,
I've got
We
it.
keep me remembering that.
yeah, the text is important, getting it right, you know? And, you know, when you're in the middle of this stuff, you know, unless you got it written down, I mean, it's so easy to get it all screwed up, you know?
25 years ago, pull it out of my brain.
Yeah.
Now I keep thinking about a movie that I used to see, oh, what the hell, Explorer, I think it was called, a kids movie. And it was about an alien that kidnapped a young child and said they experimented by putting all the information into his brain, and the kid said, well, what happened? The alien said it leaked. And I think that's what I'm getting now. It's leaking.
Well, and that's the thing, is you get brain lock,
Yeah,
you get too much, you get overload. Yeah, I know what
Especially
you
when
mean.
there's conflicting things that, I mean, there's so many different things you can say at a particular time during a case, unless you have it ordered in your mind.
Right.
Yeah, and
You
it's
can-
difficult because I've always done that kind of, you know,
Yeah.
the plan, and then you get like 3 parts into it, and then the plan goes to shit
You
because
get hit in the face.
yeah, reality comes in and something happens that you just didn't. You know, I mean, it's like me with the cop. I'm giving talks about, you know, lean out as he's coming towards the car and shouting and ask him all these questions, you know, emergency first thing, you know, I saw your emergency lights. That went straight out the window because he got out of the car, he was far enough back, and then immediately went to the inside and came down. So what the hell?
They've been trained to do that because they did that to me the last 2 times. I got stopped.
Yeah,
They go on the inside, the other side of the road.
yeah. Now I know for safety reasons, I can understand the reason why they do it. I mean, he had plenty of room because I pulled far enough off the road at that point. But yeah, I can definitely see the reason. But yeah, there's your plan. That's the way. That's the sequence, and then he throws a spanner in the works by not coming to your window, by going to another one.
Right.
And then it adds the delay because, you know, you're popping the window down, and immediately he's asking your questions, or his questions. Sorry, so you're straight on the back foot. You're not able to jump in
Right.
and surprise him by shouting questions at him
Yeah.
as he's approaching, and that was my intention. You know.
Well, one you can hit them with right off the bat is, does your employer own this land upon which you're arresting me? Does your employer, this is the cop, you're saying?
Yeah.
Does your employer own the land
Oh.
upon which you are arresting me?
Yeah.
Right? They won't. They won't own it.
No.
Unless you're on if you go to their barracks or something like that.
And they
But-
don't own that,
What's that?
I don't think they own that, they don't own anything,
No, they're private corporations. They do own things.
no, they don't,
Yes, they do.
not the land,
They own the land that their barracks are on.
not true, I proved it.
In Pennsylvania for The state police that I'm dealing with?
Well, it would be similar to municipal police that I was dealing with.
These are state police.
What's the difference?
There's a lot of difference.
Yeah, I think the state police have a,
They would have some facilities. They would probably, the state would own, yeah.
municipal police. Just
Municipal
city
police
cops.
is city,
City
and
cops.
state police is the state. So then whoever the state is, the state owns probably quite a bit of property.
What's the difference? I don't think they own the property.
Well, their employer does though.
I don't think they do. It's never been, it's the corporation. What's the difference between, I hear what you're saying, state police. But if the state gave the municipality the charter to build that, and then they used taxpayer funds to build the jail. See, in my mind, I was on the land. It had nothing to do with what was around me.
So Nelson, how do you know they don't take their fees from their engagements with customers on the road and pay for that property?
Well, of course they do.
Right.
But what you have to do, that's why it's all Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, perjury of oath.
Yeah.
Because they're demanding Federal Reserve notes again.
Even their very existence.
Right. They had to spend Federal Reserve notes to build the building.
Exactly. And as long as I kept in my mind I was on my land, not theirs, it didn't matter what was going on around me. The bars, the people that were approaching me. So I'm not entirely sure if the state police barracks, since it's a chartered corporation under the United States, the land underneath that barracks is not their land.
So you're saying that it's not, that if it's owned by the corporation, is it owned by the state? I mean, just because a corporation owns it doesn't mean the state owns it.
And the state is the state is a corporation, and I'm talking about the land.
Yeah,
I'm
but
not
there's
talking-
two states too. There's
Yes,
your
yes,
state
and I was
and
on,
then there's
I
a
was on,
corporation.
and I was on New Jersey.
Right.
And you've got an argument if you make the argument.
Well, they ordered me to leave, and I said no. I'm not leaving. I'm in the jail cell. I said, you have no authority. That's when the captain threatened to arrest me for trespassing, when I'm already in the jail cell.
laughable. Where are you going to put me?
Well, there's
I
no
did
such
laugh.
crime as trespassing.
Well, that too. That is true. But he could, yeah, so, I mean, I hadn't committed a crime. That was helpful. I mean, if I had committed a crime, I'm not sure what rights I would have at that point. But I hear you that the state owns the land. What is the state we're referring to? It's really a state of the United States. So the land, they do not own the land. The state of Pennsylvania, in my world, in their world, I understand why they say that.
The state of Pennsylvania does own land. It's a private corporation. It's listed in the Dun and Bradstreet.
Correct, same as the city of Ocean City, and they had me in their jail and ordered me to get off of their property. I said, it's not your property, it's my property.
Well, I think it is their property.
It isn't.
Are you sure?
I
State
stayed.
is a fiction.
It's a fiction. They had to get out of my jail cell. And I stayed for 22 hours under my own volition because I am a man on the land, and the jail that you guys have me in, I'm going to leave when I want to leave.
I can understand what he's saying because the de jure state wouldn't own anything. The people
Mm-hmm.
have power.
Right. And then they brought me there, and I said, I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
But
So,
it wasn't New Jersey that you were on, it was the state of New Jersey.
Yeah.
No, I was on New Jersey. They were claiming it's the state of New Jersey.
They were claiming that.
Right. And I said, I don't have to leave because I'm on New Jersey, not the state of New Jersey.
I don't know if that's correct.
I proved
well, you could definitely say that if you were out on the street.
Right.
In one of their buildings.
exactly, and
Then
that's where,
it's-
right, no, I hear what they're saying,
Yeah.
and in my world, I proved that the man, was the king on that land. The cement I'm standing on, even though you guys paid for it, what's underneath is my land, and everyone's land.
Yeah.
Belongs to the people.
But they have title to that property, right?
But
They
even
do.
their title's in the fiction.
Exactly. And
Even a land
But that's-
patent. There's court cases that talk about it, even a land patent is
But who's-
color of title.
Who's moving against you? It's the Commonwealth of or the state of, right?
Yeah.
And that's who the title's under.
Well, but it's all fiction.
I know, but it's a fiction that's the only thing they can deal with in their courts are fiction.
That's right, that's right.
which is why, me being a man, standing there refusing to leave, they didn't touch me. Because they had brought me there against my will. I actually think I could walk into their police station. I did actually. I stood there for 3 hours and read the book of Revelation to the desk sergeant.
I was sure he was
Absolutely. Oh, he was the one that was going to arrest me, by the way. That's why. That's what got him. Because he was on desk duty, and I had never read the whole book of Revelation all the way through, and I did it out loud.
Oh, jeez.
It took 3 hours. And I would comment on it. I'd repeat, "Oh, that's interesting," and I'd repeat the verse.
That's hilarious. I sent you that. Glenn.
But
Glenn, sorry.
so give me an example of your state police situation, why you're claiming they own the land.
Well, take for example, if you have a security guard at Walmart, right, and you take something, you get to the point where you go across the street and you're sitting at McDonald's. Can they go over there and arrest you?
For what?
Or can they detain you? Let me put it that way. They can't
Who?
really arrest you.
Who?
The security guard from Walmart.
They-
If you've stolen something from their store and you get out of their property, off their lot, over to McDonald's across the street, can they go over and interact with you?
They can follow you
Right.
and they can detain you because they have the authority, because they witnessed the commission of a crime. And even under, I mean, they're not even under statute at that point, they're under common law, what do they call it now, citizen's arrest. So they could just simply have the power under citizen's arrest.
They can make a call, they can follow you, they can't, I don't think they can detain you.
They do.
They do, but I don't think they're lawfully
I
allowed.
think that would be false arrest
Yeah.
and kidnapping.
Yeah,
I think they'd have to call the cops and turn me
To
in.
affect the, right.
But that's the whole point of a citizen's arrest, though.
But,
You
if it
detain
was-
somebody and
if-
hand them to the police.
Right. If you're trying to get away, if you're running or something, then they can stop you, I think,
If
because
you're
that would be
fleeing.
a citizen's arrest.
yeah. If you're fleeing,
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter how fast you're doing it, you're still fleeing the property with stolen goods. So they can stop you at that point.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, if, and just so, I wasn't sure if if you had gotten away and were across the street and they come up to you, I think it's too late. Because then they can't prove that you have their property and all of that stuff. If they have to stop you like when you're leaving the store.
Yeah, the moment you leave the store.
That's right.
Is ideally when they
They'd
stop
have
you
to-
and they
they'd
take
have-
you
While
back
you're
into the
still
store.
on
That's
their
right.
Right.
titled property. But I was under the impression that you were referring to a state police situation.
I am.
Give
but
me the
I'm
example.
using this as a lead into it.
Okay.
So the lead in is they don't have jurisdiction except for on their own property. Okay, so you take the state
Yes.
police, which is a federated government corporation,
Right.
they're arresting people on the streets, and the streets are not their property. It's not their, they don't own that property. They do not have title to that property, but yet they go out there and they arrest people.
Right.
Now, what are the things they can arrest them for? Breach of the peace,
Right.
an emergency, if they're committing a felony or something like that, it gets reported to 411, and there's a 411 call out as an emergency for them to pick up somebody because they created a crime or a felony or something like that.
I'm not even sure they can do that because they
And a
need
warrant, and a warrant. From a
Right.
judge, signed duly by a judge.
Right.
Not for a contract though,
Right.
right? Because contracts are all civil. That's not an arrestable offense. So if you ask them, do you own this land? They don't own the land. They have no jurisdiction territorially to arrest you for that. Right? Now they can do something, they can interact with you for a safety violation, so if your taillights out or something like that, they've got a duty to do that, and that was the original intent for the highway patrol, as we talked about earlier.
And it's still only based on a contract.
But they're not really arresting you, they're just notifying you of the safety issue that exists, the taillight's out, or the license plate light is out, or your tire's wobbling.
Well, it's gone outside notification now into,
Oh, yeah,
you know, monetary fines
I
on
know.
the street.
yeah, I know.
I mean, they used to, even in England, there was no such thing as a fixed penalty notice that you were, or a ticket that you were issued by the cop. You took all the details, you then went back and created a summons, which you then submitted, then it was mailed to them, and then they had to appear in court. That's how it used to happen.
Okay.
And that was the process. Now it's fixed penalty notices, which they have no authority to do, because,
So they actually give you a penalty.
yeah, you're
It's
given a
printed on
fine
the ticket.
before
Right.
it's a due process violation.
Interesting.
Yeah, you're convicted.
Yeah.
You're convicted right there on the side of the street.
Yeah.
Right.
Here, pay the fine. Hang on a minute, there's something wrong here.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't get my proper due process. So, and what I used to say to some people in the past, I'm not sure if you can do it in the US, but you can say, no, I'm not accepting the ticket, send me a summons. And then they wouldn't have a fucking clue what to do, because none of them know how to produce a summons. Not these days, because that's all they're told to do is write tickets. Or you can say, I'm sorry, I'm within my rights, I'm invoking my rights, and right now you're actually violating my due process.
Right.
So go through due process, issue a summons.
Official misconduct as a state employee or state officer. I'm not clear on, I thought you had a situation where it had to do with the state barracks, you're on their property.
No. The barracks was across from where they arrested me. They arrested me in a private parking lot.
For,
For having a plate on the back of the car, which was a notice to them that I was not driving in commerce, that I was exempt, that I wasn't driving
so
for
you were
profit.
violating the motor vehicle code.
I was driving, it was the motor vehicle code.
Right,
is what it was.
title, whatever it is.
Yep.
So, if I was in their police barracks they don't have authority, is my point. They don't, not only do they not have authority on the road, they don't have authority in their own barracks.
Prove that to me.
I'm telling you that the proof is 1817. Because that state police authority comes from Washington, D.C. today.
I see
Today.
I see where you're going.
Today.
Okay.
So when, I don't see any difference between the municipal powers and the state police powers, as far as me in being involved.
But if you're going on territorial jurisdiction, you go to the point where you're arrested. That's what you do, right? So if you go to the point where you're arrested by the side of the road, you want to know whether they own that land, and you know they don't.
They don't own the barracks, they don't own their
It
uniforms.
doesn't matter. It's the point where you're arrested.
It goes for territorial jurisdiction.
Right.
Because let's say, for instance, you were down in the Capitol buildings in
Right,
Philadelphia.
but that's federal.
That's federal.
So they don't,
That's
there's
the
a,
point. They can arrest you there, and they
Yes.
have territorial
I would
jurisdiction.
agree, but there's
And
no
they can
federal.
take you anywhere else
There's no-
after that.
I'm not so sure of that.
Well, they do, because,
I'm not so sure they can. They do.
yeah.
They do a lot of things. The minute I'm off of federal land, I think at that point, maybe they need to unleash me. If they keep me on federal property, yes.
Mm-hmm.
The state barracks and the state land that they arrested you across from the barracks is not federal property. Now, if they have title to federal property, absolutely.
Well, we were going through this earlier. Is it can the state police purchase property under 1817? And the answer is yes.
If
They
it's
get it
se-
ceded by the legislature
No.
of the state and
No.
they purchase it.
No.
That's what it says.
No.
Yes,
No.
it does. If it's ceded by the legislature of the state
To who?
to the federal government,
Is it? Did they cede those state barracks?
I'm telling you how it can be done. I'm not saying it is. I don't know whether it is or not. Okay.
And that makes no sense, because then it would become federal property.
Exactly. It's like forts, docks, needful buildings, arsenals, magazines.
Right. So,
The government, the federal government can purchase land. It says it right in 1817. It can be ceded to the federal government based on approval of the legislature for purchase by the federal government.
correct. So, what's
So
your...
if it's purchased and it's ceded by the
Right.
legislature of the state,
Right,
that can be considered federal and it can be their jurisdiction.
I would agree, but how does that have to do with the state police in Pennsylvania?
Well, I'm talking about the barracks, if that was the case.
I'm telling you, the barracks, impossible for it to be federal, because that would mean that there's federal officers on that property.
Well, aren't the state police federated?
Yes, which is why they're acting under color of law. That's the beauty of it. They have no authority. They act like they do. And that's why when I was in the jail cell the first time, he put me in there and I said to him, he was a captain, you have no oath of allegiance under the legislature to arrest me in the first place. And this was way back before I knew about 1817, I think. That would even make my case stronger now. So I said, you brought me here without my permission. I think I'll stay. Because all I knew is the land that was under my feet was de jure. Everything around me was not. It was all de facto. And it could have been a state police barracks, it could have been a city, it didn't matter. So I was like the king standing there, and nobody's allowed to touch me. And that's what happened. So the 1817 would be a way to make whatever the situation is void at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah, I see
Have you
what-
done that?
I did, I just sent it to the clerk of the court. Remember I said I was in there and I wanted him to sign the proof of service document that I had?
I missed
with it.
that.
And, oh, maybe you weren't in here when I
Okay,
said
so
that. So,
forgive me,
yeah.
I wasn't here for
Yeah,
that.
I put that in the case and served.
And don't ever refer back to it.
I'm sorry?
Don't refer to the case again.
I just walk away.
According to Charlie, if we get involved and reference it, the only thing I did when I sent in my lack of
Give them
jurisdiction,
jurisdiction, basically, when you do that.
you're acknowledging, right?
Yeah, acknowledging that they have jurisdiction because you're answering to the case.
Right, so what I did was I sent in the lack of jurisdiction, and I didn't refer to the case, but I did put the first page so they would know, and it was to the clerk of the court, as you said.
Yeah,
The clerk of the court, not the judge.
right.
Superior clerk to the court. Now, as far as I know, it's over and done.
When's your next hearing, or is there a hearing set up?
What happened was, as I was arrested in June, county court. This is a separate incident. Okay. I was arrested and put into the county jail without a warrant. I actually think I could have stayed there, but they would have denied me food and water the same way they did here. When I told them in the municipal jail, after 2 hours, they said, "You're free to go." I says, "Well, I'm staying." They said, "You can stay, but we're not giving you any food or water."
So then just shit on the floor.
Oh, there was a toilet there.
But shit on the floor anyway.
And so I said, I agree with those terms, because it made sense to me. I was now free to go, but I'm also free to stay.
But if you take the food and water, then you're accepting a benefit then.
Well, they had already told me they weren't giving me it.
But if you were to accept it, you're accepting a benefit. not
No,
a-
that wouldn't matter. If
I
they
think it
wanna-
would.
No, if they want to feed me, that's up to them. Because I'm still free to stay. I'm the king. You're bringing me the food. My food that comes from the DC. I don't see that whole benefit thing. I no longer subscribe to it because I learned that they owe me. They're not giving me a benefit. They owe it to me. Big difference. Because their whole creation is a fiction.
You're the use of right.
Exactly. So they owe you, they owe me, they owe everybody. So I'm down in the court here, and
Then why didn't you bring up that argument with them and say,
which one?
you're the usufruct, and based on HCR 192, since there's no gold or silver, you have to provide for the people.
I'm learning as I go. At the time,
No, I'm just saying for the future, not for the historical.
well, let me tell you what happened. When I was in jail at the county, because I refused to participate in the illegal arrest, they were forced to pick me up out of the city cruiser and put me into the county jail.
Oh, jeez.
And then they had to pick me up out of the wheelchair they put me in and put me into the jail cell. So about 2 hours later, the guy comes to me and he shows me the paper. He says, "We're charging you." And he showed me the paper for 2 lifts, he called me. I says, "Well, I'm not signing that." He says, "You don't have to sign it. I'm just showing it to you." And I read it, and it was for 2 extra lifts.
So you know what else you can do there?
What's that?
When he said, we're charging you, you know you is plural, don't you?
Yeah, we've been down this one before. I brought it up a few years ago.
Is he saying YOU meaning you, the one person? Or is he saying you, the collective all the yous that are in there, is he saying you and your legal fiction?
It had to do, well,
Is he saying EWE?
he was
A
referring to referring to the name that was on the paperwork.
So what do you say next? Under what authority do you recognize me by that name? What he's trying to do, what he's done is create a joinder because you let him get away with that. Under what authority do you recognize me by that name?
Well, at that point, that was.
Don't make excuses, I'm just telling you what you do the next time, okay?
Actually, you should look up personage and barratory, because that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Excuse me? Sorry, I didn't want to really throw that in, but it's
No, I
kind
didn't
of come up.
understand what you said.
Personal.
Personage and barratory.
Okay.
If you look up those two phrases, that's what they're doing. They're joining the name to you, the body. You've
They
not
did-
accepted
they-
it.
they
They're
did-
forcing that.
Well, they did
That's-
that from the very first acquisition of my body on the boardwalk here.
So what you say to him is, I am not you, I am me. Say, I am me, and a lot of them will walk away from you when you do that.
I was in a jail cell at the time.
You weren't through the whole thing. They're calling you all the time. I'm just giving you some clues.
Right,
as to
you're
what to-
under arrest, they said.
You, yeah. Who's you? Which you are you talking about? I'm me. I am me. Are you putting me under arrest?
And they would say yes.
Say, under what authority do you recognize me? Who are you arresting? What's the name of the person you're arresting?
The name on the warrant.
What's the name on the warrant?
And they would tell me the name.
Under what authority do you recognize me by that name?
Same thing again. They're attaching the name to you.
Right.
Personage and barratory.
Okay, so
They're
what's the
felons,
point?
I
They
believe,
would
too,
have,
so.
they would have continued anyway, regardless at that point.
Doesn't matter. You have not joined, you haven't been joined. Every time they say you, say, who is you? Are you talking to me? What's the name of you? You know what a judge does when they pass a sentence?
I find you.
They say, in the matter of, say my name, in the matter of Edward James Arts, I find you guilty. Now, why don't they just say, in the matter of Edward James Arts, we find guilty, or Edward James Arts is guilty of this.
Right, it connects them to the money that's available.
They're separating. In the matter of Edward James Arts, we find you. It doesn't say that they're finding Edward J. Arts guilty. It says you. Who is you? You got to ask that question. Who is you?
Mhm.
You know what some people do? There's a guy down in Texas that does this. I forget his name. I wish I could remember it. But when the judge addresses him as, what's your name? He says, Judge, you and your are plural. I would prefer that you address me as me, the addressee, and you as you, the addressor. Okay? Now he's got to call you. Excuse me, me. You're me. That's singular. It can only be me. It can't be the legal fiction. It can't be a sheep, a EWE. It can't be.
One of the, on the same lines, one of the things that, information I found out probably 12 years ago now, on a similar line, whenever the judge or even the prosecutor is talking to you, the best thing to do is mostly just ignore them and just have a look around the court as if you're just checking out the decorations. And
Don't hear you.
you're not hearing them, and they'll kind of repeat the question, and then you start, oh, are you addressing me? That was an exact phrase that I was told by a very, very senior barrister who had retired a long time ago in Ireland. But he was being very helpful to the freemen on the land
Yeah.
cause at that time.
Yeah, you gotta be careful when you do that, because the judge, you can get through it, you can get him to dismiss the case, and when the judge, as you're walking out of the court, he'll say, "Mr. Arts," and if you turn around and acknowledge that, now all of a sudden he's got your right, you're back to the races.
Yeah, because you responded to the name.
Yeah.
So
And it doesn't even matter about the name, because somebody else, in fact, I think Glenn relates the story. It happened some time ago where somebody was in court, they fleeced the whole court system, they're in there for, a couple of hours going through all sorts of bull crap and not getting away with anything. But the guy was chewing a toothpick, and the judge said, "Okay, get out of my court, and while you're at it, take that damn toothpick out of your mouth." And he took it out of his mouth.
Took an order.
He took an order. Bailiff, arrest that man. And that, just that simple response.
If he would have said, "Is that an order, Judge?"
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
I'll be glad to take your order. Do you want to see my price list?
Yeah.
Do you have any other orders for me, Judge? I'm happy to take your orders.
That's funny. So where does your state police situation lie?
Oh, it got really fucked up. I mean, it was a simple infraction that I went to court. This judge was throwing all the paperwork I put in the court, he was just throwing it away. And so I knew it was a kangaroo court, so I brought a recording device into the court because I knew he was going to run over me. And they arrested me for wiretapping, which is a class 3 felony.
Oh, boy.
But it's not on federal land,
Correct.
right?
That's what I would say.
Yep.
And of course, don't go in at all if it'll make them drag us in. So you went in willingly?
I haven't gone in for the federal charge yet.
Federal?
I mean, the wiretapping charge.
Have you sent in the 1817 on that charge?
Yeah.
Great. So you haven't heard anything, correct?
Well, it's scheduled for the 24th.
Okay, this is the key. According to my friend Charlie. So let me finish what the sequence of events was, because it relates to that, okay? I was arrested in June. They attempted to give me a court date. I explained to the sheriffs, if this judge wants me back here in 2 months, put me back in my jail cell. If he has the authority to order me back here in 2 months, then put me back in the jail cell, because I refuse to return. It took about an hour. My last statement to the sheriffs was, if the judge is ordering you to throw me out, have him come down here and wheel me out himself. So they went away. I don't know if they talked to the judge or not. But we've been ordered to put you into the cruiser and take you to the bus stop. I had signed nothing. They gave me back my personal belongings and wanted me to sign that. I refused to do that, so they basically handed me my personal belongings, lifted me into the cruiser, and dropped me off at the bus stop. That was in June. My court date was August 16th. I sent in the 1817 July 13th, a month before. My court date came and went. Charlie was very clear, do not ever refer to anything as far as when they wanted you back. Because as of July 13th, there is no court date, because I put in lack of jurisdiction. And that court date came and went, And when I was in front of city council, telling them when I was wearing my prison uniform to city council, I said, I may be put under arrest next week, and I have two things I'd like to say on the record. One is that if I have to go to jail for a year and something happens to me, my family can split up all my earthly possessions. Secondly, I want my body buried on the Mount of Olives. Most people expected me, after saying some, I use the word some judge thinks he has the authority to tell me I can't go to church. Many city and state and county employees all thought, well, he's not going to get away with that. They were shocked when I showed up 2 weeks later, not having been put in jail.
Do you have a way to look up the docket on, in Pennsylvania, they have something called case search or case finder? And you can put in the docket or the participant name or anything like that, and all those cases under your name will pop up. It'd be interesting to look at that and see if there's a warrant out for your arrest.
They know where he is though.
Right. And
They would have arrested him by now from
You
August.
think so?
No, not always, because what happens is they wait till they want to.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I have no problem. The point is that if it is, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But the point is when Charlie said, do not. I just put in the front page of the pretrial release papers so they would see the number, but I never referred to the case number in the lack of jurisdiction notice. So I just basically told them they have no jurisdiction over me, and I didn't refer to that case number at all. That was the end. And so as of right now, there's been no issues. I don't know when I go back. Part of that order, which I never signed, was don't come within a reasonable distance of the man who accused you of stalking, who happens to be the pastor.
Is this a superior court in New
Yes.
Jersey? So you have your, let's see, you have the complaint number.
Not handy.
You can usually just search on the name.
Well, it's got name. It's got name.
Yeah.
Let's see.
For Cape May County?
This is New Jersey. It'll take everything in New Jersey.
Really?
New
Sure.
Jersey.
Let's see what the current status of that name is.
Let's see, we want to do search option by name. Got to do first, middle, and last. So first is Nelson.
Yes.
And the middle is, looks like it might be middle initial. I don't know, it's a small area. The middle initial.
The one they use is A.
Okay.
I told the sheriff that's my slave name that he was trying to,
Dice.
D-I-C-E.
Let's see what comes up.
That'd be interesting.
Click to refresh caption.
We use the same thing with some civil stuff that Tara's ex-husband was responsible for, but because stuff was in her name, she got saddled with civil debts, let's say, that I kind of dealt with them, and then she did a search herself and nothing came.
Cool.
Gone.
Here.
So one of them was for a $5,000, supposedly a $5,000 debt to an insurance company for damages to a property which taught damages, but she wasn't responsible for it, and I pretty much said so and threw it back in jurisdiction, didn't bother going to the court. And then threw a red notice at them afterwards when they said, oh, we've been to court and it was default, we found you guilty and you owe us the money, how can we arrange collection?
This was the court or the?
No, this was actually the lawyer. It's always the lawyer, never heard anything, I got a fucking postcard for the court hearing. That's what it was, threw it in the bin. And everything else, sent everything back to the lawyer, lack of jurisdiction.
Oh, okay, I didn't realize that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
The red notice to a lawyer.
Yeah, well, that was the last thing they sent back to them, because at that point then they were saying, oh, well, we heard the court case and it was summary judgment in our favour.
Which may have been the case.
But we didn't go, we didn't answer anything to the complaint, just sent letters back to the lawyer.
The red notice has the federal 1342.
Yeah. That was the last thing we ever heard from them. Check the records later on.
Beautiful.
There's no court case.
Yeah. They're not willing to lose their license to steal. Any news, Ed?
I don't know which one it was. Here, what you do is you select which one it was. Oops. Let's see, do this. Okay, select which one it was, and then go over here to look at view summary. Okay. I've got to hit the restroom.
Don't fall in.
Float on it.
It's that
Oh,
T.
beautiful. All the, okay, transfer. Wonderful. Yeah, these are all Ocean City Municipal Court. See, I haven't sent the, 8 times I trespassed on the property. And
You're
they-
counting?
Excuse me?
You're counting?
Am I counting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, see if they missed it. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 times I trespassed. Oh, this one's going back. Okay, it's the one, oh, time payment. Oh, the warrant status was recalled. That was after, that was my original false arrest. Beautiful, this is interesting. Page 1 of 2, so that, there's another page.
So, well, it's 5:30. Should we go for dinner?
Fresh ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I need to take a picture of it. There it is, there's the 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, no, 9. Beautiful. Oh, simple assault, that's there too. Knowingly causing bodily injury. Oh, to the cops. And that's also municipal court, okay? So it was a municipal court summons originally
Mm-hmm.
that they put me in the county. Interesting. It's very helpful. Okay, so now, how do I go to the next page? Yeah, this is interesting, Ed, thank you.
Is it, what? Is it your intent to harm me, the beneficiary? Sent that to you.
Okay.
Okay, and prevents
Oh, there we
offers.
go.
Okay, if I look at your little bookie here.
Sure. There's several copies, it's not all.
Oh, it's so.
Yeah.
That looked kind of-
Okay,
Yeah,
so-
yeah.
Ed, thank you so much. Stalking recalled after it was transferred. The warrant was recalled. So to answer your question, there's no warrant
Good.
for that, for the, but there's, and, interesting. Interesting.
Well, you have the Milstead.
Yeah. There's
The
another one
sum.
from. Yeah, there's another one from
Arizona.
Philadelphia.
Was it?
Yeah, I saw it once and I've never seen it again. But it was a judge, apparently, if I remember correctly, from Philadelphia, which I thought would have been ideal because it's literally the next state over from where I am.
I live in Pennsylvania, so I'd be
Yeah, well-
interested in that one.
Yeah, well, it's my intention now, probably when I end up moving to Pennsylvania, but same thing, would have been ideal. Just, I've never been able to
That
find
was
it.
awesome, Ed. That gave me, I like my case, as they say.
Mhm.
A little proof of the pudding, huh?
Yeah, and it makes my whole, the one, that it says recalled, the 1817,
Perfect.
that, it doesn't say when it was recalled. But I've just sent in an Open Public Records Act request for all of the arrest video and video during the incarceration. They haven't gotten back to me yet. I'm expecting to say no.
So all you do is you put in Google New Jersey case search, and it'll say traffic court or superior court,
Mhm.
and go to superior court, and then just put your name in, and they'll pop up.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Thank you. That was a blessing. Wow, that's good news. It makes my case.
Mhm.
Even like everything I thought was the case. And so the stalking charge has been recalled. So when I go back to, and my friends told me, you go to my home church. I says, has anybody been at the door? Because they used to lock the door on me
Yeah.
and let other people in and lock it on me. And I was like, all right, I have to risk another stalking charge for going to church because the pastor's the one who, but it's
Yeah.
been recalled. And so anyway, they said, no, nobody's at the door.
Makes me wonder if he actually did charge you with anything or if they're making it up.
No, he did, because when I was after I got back from the hospital, and after he got done preaching at 8, 9, and 11, at about 1 o'clock, I was sitting in the cruiser, and I saw him walk in with papers. Like he had been told, you need to bring a statement after.
Statement of complaint.
So if I go talk to the prosecutor now,
About what?
after I put the 1817, does that give them jurisdiction back?
If it was me, I wouldn't. I had nothing to do with them. Nothing.
I think what I was trying to say, the Adam,
Yeah.
like I said to Glenn earlier on, rest his soul, I was helping deal with some tickets that he ended up getting. A confetti for them, there was a lot. And we did the same thing. I didn't use the 1817 because I didn't know about that particular phrase at the time. But I was doing the same thing by stating that there was lack of jurisdiction, but I was also pointing out the certain procedural defects. Could you rectify this issue and, dismiss this? Because the due process was, there was an infringement in the proper due process. And we sent the tickets back, accepting the oath of office, all of that stuff. And he hadn't heard anything for any of them. One of them, because there were two cases, one of them had gone to court, but it was video hearing. And they were trying to get into conversation. And the judge left a message at this initial court case, which he ignored. And the second time, there was another one, they didn't leave a message, and he didn't answer. And that one seemed to go away, nothing seemed to happen. But then there was another one that was due, and then unfortunately he passed away. So, not relating to this.
You mean the guy that had been arrested passed away?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I say, rest his soul. It's unfortunately.
Who was that?
Adam.
That's unfortunate.
I forgot his surname then.
Adam, I don't know that I ever knew it. Did we know it?
Yeah, Adam,
I still have it. I still have his, I
Yeah.
still keep
Anyway,
his,
Yeah, I still have his information on
What's that?
Do we wanna go to dinner?
We're going, Glenn.
I just want to
I
know
wanna-
if we
Glenn,
want
you
to.
had a whole loaf of bread at 2 o'clock.
About,
Like
yeah,
I
that's
said,
right.
we eat, now you know why I had just the fries, okay?
Yeah.
If I was expecting to eat at dinner, I can't eat lunch.
I know. I can see that.
So now you're gonna go sit and not have lunch, hopefully. Meaning you'll go if you go.
That was a big the big omelet that they.
It was, well, they, it
Yes,
was,
sir.
it
It was
Yeah, I
good.
missed it. Had a light lunch. Upstairs with stepdaughter Gabby and Tara, so spend a bit of time with them. They don't mind.
no, it looks like Adam's been removed, maybe by his wife.
Probably could have done that.
Bobby probably. I was enjoying having, it reminded me of
Yeah, no, I keep seeing. In fact, let me have a look because I saw it just the other day.
Did you?
He was still on there.
it. Was he?
There's a couple things in there that are
Yeah, I was-
interesting, that are
Yeah,
interesting.
I was a little bit upset when I heard that news. I'll tell you.
Now,
I
where
was
did
expecting
he
that.
live? Was he in New Jersey?
Yeah, he lived in Brick, New Jersey. Adam Berg. That's it.
Berg, yes.
Yeah, he's still on here.
Is he?
Still having-
He's not on mine.
Character, real good guy, you know.
He was a good man.
Taken too early.
A lot of stress in his life.
Yeah, I think so.
Like always wound up, you can't live that way and expect something not to blow.
Yeah.
It's like a tire on a hot road.
Yeah, I think he was concerned because there was another case that I was trying to help him with, but none of the paperwork wise. But that was the one where he'd gotten stopped and he had those guns taken.
Yeah, the guns was the problem. But I think they were doing him a favor and just it was going away without him doing anything, but that's no way to live, And they couldn't just say it's over, put it on the record. They just have to everybody realizes you're in your own corners and there is nothing here.
Yeah, but one of the things that he wanted to fight to some extent was to be able to get the guns back. Because his whole argument and some of the stuff of the information I gave him was that they didn't have the jurisdiction to take them in it anyway, and if you stand on your rights,
Right, I
the
agree.
Second Amendment says that you have a right to bear arms.
Well, and so what you do though in that case is you make an affidavit and you say these are not guns, they're arms.
Arms, correct.
And these are not firearms, they're arms.
Mm-hmm.
And there's people that I know of that have done that and the case goes away.
Right, it doesn't say we have the right to bear firearms, does it?
Correct.
No, that's right.
That's
That's
why
why
they
they
get you
use
with the words.
That's why they use the different words. They'll never use arms.
Yeah.
Arms could be a shield. That's a weapon.
Arms can be a lot of things. That's right. Sword, a sword.
And I'm wondering if the reason why Jesus didn't tell Peter that 2 is enough is like that's the only amount of hands he had.
That was, remember, black powder? Black powder guns. There's a movie with Clint Eastwood where with black powder guns you can get the drums that you load the drums with the black powder so it's a revolver, but it's just not exactly like these with the cartridges. You know what I mean?
Like a musket almost on a smaller
Except
scale.
that
Yeah.
right. Except you can get 6 shots off.
Yeah.
And then you get a spare drum. You can have a spare drum, and there's a movie where Clint Eastwood changes drums on his gun.
Okay.
And it's a black powder gun. There's a guy that I know in Texas that is a felon, and so he can't have firearms, so he has black powder. And he has black powder guns all day long, and there's nothing he can do. And he gets them shipped to him and all sorts of stuff.
The first thing that comes up under black powder guns is black powder guns for felons.
Is that right? so again,
On the search.
because those things, in the days when the Constitution was written, that's what they had.
Yeah,
is the
that's
black
right.
powder.
It is legal for a convicted felon to own a black powder gun.
That's right.
Wow, that's cool. New law gives more right to, okay. All right, well, it's 5:36.
So, I guess I'll stop recording.
Very